Chapter 1209. The Golden Mountain King led 800 warriors of the Earth Spirit clan to dig a tunnel within 1,000 miles of land. The terrain of this area was constantly changing. The Earth Fire Essence Chi and the Metal Earth Power were all cut off. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yarrow continued to cast spells and set up all kinds of soul-grade formations around the giant stone formation in the ruins that were dozens of miles in radius. He wanted to use formations to break formations, gradually weaken the power of the giant rock formation, and then crack it. Everything was going according to his plan, in an orderly manner. For 2 days, the abyss was calm and peaceful. There were no disturbances. Until the 3rd day, 2 Sky Origin Realm Monster Kings suddenly broke into the abyss. The 2 Monster Kings were heavily injured. Their bodies were covered in blood, and they fled into the abyss with wounds all over their bodies. They looked furious and terrified. When they encountered the warriors of the Earth Spirit clan, they attacked recklessly. They used their powerful attacks and blasted many big holes and ravines in the ground. Ji Tianxing acted just in time and killed the 2 demon kings in an instant. He guessed that someone might have found the Fallen God Cliff and fought with the Monster Kings around the Fallen God Cliff. The 2 Monster Kings were badly wounded and had nowhere to hide. They ran into the abyss. Seeing this, Yun Yarrow hurried to remind him, Tianxing, Duanmu Peng used to set up a sealing formation to seal the abyss passageway. No one could break in here. Now that we've broken the seal, I'm afraid there will be even more demonic beasts and martial artists coming here. Ji Tianxing nodded and said, Yarrow, you stay here. I will set up the sealing formation in the abyss passageway. Then, he left the dark wasteland and flew toward the abyss passageway. He flew along the passageway for 200 miles and stopped at a corner. He was ready to set up the sealing formation. Unfortunately, 2 figures wrapped in 5-colored lights were flying toward him at lightning speed. He scanned them with his God Soul Power and found that they were 2 Sky Origin Realm Level 7 experts. As expected, Yarrow guessed correctly. The powerhouses of Swinging Sky City have finally found this place. In the past, the God-fallen cliff did not have any worldly anomalies. There was also a dark fire tortoise guardian. No one could find the God-fallen cliff, much less come here. Now that the dark fire tortoise is dead and the sealing array is gone, these guys can still break in. How troublesome. He muttered a few words in his heart. Then, he cast a spell and sent out 2 giant flaming palms towards the 2 Heaven Prime powerhouses. This road is blocked. Leave immediately, or you will be killed without mercy, he shouted in a dignified voice, and his voice reverberated in the tunnel. When the 2 Heaven Origin Realm warriors saw the giant flaming palm coming and felt the unparalleled power, their faces turned pale with fright. Oh my God! There really is someone here. Someone actually broke into this place in advance. He must be thinking of taking the divine artifact for himself. The first reaction of the 2 Heaven Origin stage cultivators was that there was a divine weapon hidden in the depths of the tunnel. That was why Ji Tianxing had stopped them. They used all their strength to send out a sky full of sword radiance to block the giant flaming palms. However, after 2 loud bangs, the 2 of them were sent flying by the giant flaming palms and slammed into the walls of the tunnel. The 2 of them were burnt black by the giant flaming palms. They were severely injured and spat out mouthfuls of blood. The 2 of them rolled on the ground, their bodies drenched in blood and covered in dust and gravel. They struggled for a while before they staggered to their feet. Their hair was disheveled and they were in a mess. Damn it! This guy is so strong. We can't fight him head-on. Let's retreat, or we will die. The 2 of them were shocked by Ji Tianxing's strength and fear grew in their hearts. Even if they were thinking about the divine artifact in the abyss, they did not dare to stay any longer. They hurriedly turned and ran. Ji Tianxing did not chase after them. He quickly waved his palms and set up a sealing array at the corner of the tunnel. 4 hours later, he set up a soul-level low-grade sealing array and temporarily sealed the tunnel. It was impossible for martial artists and demonic beasts below the soul-refining realm to break through this seal. After that, he returned to the dark abyss and continued to cast spells with Yun Yarrow. For the next 2 days, the abyss was very peaceful. As expected, no martial artists or demonic beasts came to disturb them. 4 days later, the Golden Mountain King and the 800 warriors had penetrated the land within a radius of 1,000 miles. A labyrinth array, which was as complicated as a fishing net and consisted of thousands of tunnels, was finally formed. Those tunnels crisscrossed and connected in all directions. It was extremely complicated and complicated. Ji Tianxing took out 3 soul-level magic swords and released a great amount of magic power. They gathered the power of the 5 elements of heaven and earth and activated the giant labyrinth array. 8 hours later, the huge formation with a circumference of 1,000 miles was finally activated. The complicated tunnels were filled with colorful spiritual chi of heaven and earth. It was like a dream and was extremely gorgeous. When Yun Yarrow saw this scene, she exclaimed in disbelief. "Oh my God! I thought you were just digging the tunnels and destroying the terrain of this area. I didn't expect you to set up a 1,000-mile array. Tianxing, your array skills have improved a lot. It's getting more and more amazing." Ji Tianxing slowly stopped. He lifted his sleeve to wipe the sweat on his forehead. His face was pale as he gasped for breath. He smiled at Yun Yarrow and explained, "When I was reading the materials, I learned a lot of wonderful knowledge and understood some of the mysteries of heaven and earth. I can set up this 1,000-mile heaven and earth array because I need the help of the warriors of the Earth Spirit clan and the power of heaven and earth. The power of an array set up with one's own power is limited. However, the power of an array set up with the power of heaven and earth is infinite." Then, he stared at the giant rock array and smiled. "The power of the giant rock array is weakening. The color and power of the dark red light shield are also weakening. It seems that my method is correct. I set up a heaven and earth array to weaken the power of the giant rock array. Yarrow, we can start to break the array." The giant rock array's power source was cut off, and it gradually became difficult to support it. The dark red light shield also became weaker. In this way, the giant rock array became traceable, and it gradually showed the corresponding nodes and veins. Ji Tianxing studied the array for an entire day and finally found a way to break it. He started to break the array. With Yun Yarrow's help, he continuously cast spells to break the giant rock array. 2 days later, he was completely exhausted. His mind was exhausted, and he had used up 60 to 70% of his magic power. Fortunately, the giant rock array was finally broken. The 36 boulders became dim, cold, and deathly still. The dark red light shield that covered an area of 3,000 meters also gradually collapsed and dissipated. The giant rock array was completely broken, and the power of the seal was removed. Chapter 12:10. Ji Tianxing had long known that the sword-shaped dark golden flame could move. However, the boulder formation had sealed it and prevented it from escaping, so it could only hover quietly in the air. Now that the boulder formation had been broken, it had lost its restraints and would naturally fly away. As expected of divine power. "It's like a living thing," Yun Yarrow murmured in surprise when she saw the dark golden flame fly across the night sky. Ji Tianxing had been waiting for this moment. When the dark golden flame flew across the night sky, he struck out with a giant golden hand and grabbed it. Bam! The powerful golden hand grabbed the dark golden flame. However, the dark golden flame was too powerful. It instantly shattered the giant golden hand with a muffled sound. Ji Tianxing was also knocked back 10 steps by the powerful shockwave. His face was pale. The dark golden flame only paused for a moment before it sped up and flew away. "Damn it! It took me so much effort to break the formation. How can I let you escape from me?" Ji Tianxing growled. Golden light gushed out of his body as he flew across the night sky and chased after the golden flame. After a few breaths, he finally caught up with the golden flame when it flew out of the wasteland and into the abyss passageway. "Burial of heaven, give me a hand," he growled in his mind and threw out the broken sword with his right hand. The ink-black broken sword immediately bloomed with dazzling divine golden light and turned into a giant sword 1,000 meters long. Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, the 1,000-meter-long golden sword flew in front of the golden flames and blocked its path. Bam! The golden flames collided fiercely with the giant golden sword, exploding with a loud bang. The huge golden sword was sent flying and pierced into the rock wall. It blasted a huge hole in the rock wall and created countless ravines. Fortunately, the golden flame was also knocked back dozens of feet and slowed down. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ji Tianqing flew to Golden Flame's side and stretched out his right hand to grab Golden Flame. He activated the power of the heaven-mending orb, and his right palm released a dense and mysterious white light, grabbing the dark golden flame in his palm. Shua! The dark golden flame was enveloped by the mysterious white light. Ji Tianqing grabbed it in his hand, and it immediately struggled to escape. Ji Tianqing held onto it tightly and refused to let go no matter what. He even desperately urged the power of the heaven-mending orb to fiercely suppress it. However, the power of the golden flames was too strong, and it continued to drag him forward. He dashed left and right all the way, constantly smashing into the walls of the tunnel. Bang 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 bang! Following a series of muffled booms, the ancient abyssal passageway was blasted to pieces and collapsed. An endless amount of gravel and dust fell from the top of the cave, creating loud rumbling noises and splashing dust all over the sky. Ji Tianqing was dragged out by Golden Flame. Yun Yarrow chased after him worriedly, but she couldn't catch up. About 20 breaths later, Golden Flame dragged Ji Tianqing 200 miles away and arrived in front of the ceiling formation he had set up. Ji Tianqing originally thought that the soul-level formation he had set up would be able to resist Golden Flame for a while. However, he didn't expect that Golden Flame would release an even more dazzling golden light and break the ceiling formation with a boom, creating a huge gap. Then, the mysterious Golden Flame dragged him through the gap in the formation and continued to fly out of the tunnel. Damn it! Why does this wisp of god power seem to have intelligence? Ji Tianqing muttered to himself in shock. His heart was filled with depression. Golden Flame continued to drag him out, crashing into the abyss passageway along the way, destroying it and turning it into a pile of ruins. Yun Yarrow and the Sword of Burial of Heaven chased after him, anxiously trying to find a way to save Ji Tianqing. Not long after, Golden Flame flew out of the abyss passageway with Ji Tianqing and into the pitch-black abyss. This abyss was located under the God-falling cliff. It was the place where Ji Tianqing had killed the dark fire tortoise. Fortunately, Golden Flame's power had weakened a bit, and its flying speed had slowed down a lot. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the Sword of Burial of Heaven and Yun Yarrow quickly caught up and joined forces to help Ji Tianqing suppress the mysterious Golden Flame. The Sword of Burial of Heaven was second only to primordial spirit-grade Dharma treasures. Its power was unparalleled. With its help to suppress Golden Flame, the pressure on Ji Tianqing was greatly reduced, and he landed on the ground from the sky. He desperately urged the power of the heaven-mending orb to quickly devour the mysterious Golden Flame. Soon, Golden Flame calmed down. 15 minutes later, Golden Flame's struggle became weaker and weaker, and it was gradually suppressed by the heaven-mending orb. Another hour later, Golden Flame was completely devoured by the heaven-mending orb. It turned into thousands of golden threads and entered Ji Tianqing's body, sealed in his mind. The heaven-mending orb wrapped Golden Flame and slowly refined it. Only then did Ji Tianqing heave a sigh of relief. Phew! This Golden Flame is really difficult to deal with. Its power is unparalleled, and it's even stronger than primordial spirit supremes. If it weren't for the help of the Sword of Burial of Heaven and the heaven-mending orb, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to subdue it. Thinking of this, he was both glad and full of expectations for the mysterious Golden Flame. He couldn't help but imagine how powerful he would be after the heaven-mending orb helped him refine Golden Flame. However, the most important thing now was to adjust his breathing and recover his magic power. He hurriedly took out 2 pills and swallowed them. He sat cross-legged on the ground and began to adjust his breathing. Yarrow Yarrow, Sword of Burial of Heaven, protect me. I need 6 hours to cultivate. Yun Yarrow nodded and silently guarded him. The Sword of Burial of Heaven also floated in mid-air, monitoring all the movements around it. Ji Tianqing quickly entered a state of cultivation. His whole body was enveloped in a hazy, dazzling light. 2 hours later, Burial of Heaven's voice suddenly came from the broken sword. It said to Yun Yarrow, "You stay here and guard. I'll be back soon." After saying that, the broken sword flew away with a swoosh and soon disappeared into the darkness. Yoon Yarrow didn't have time to ask what it was going to do. She could only keep her doubts in her heart. After a while, she saw two dazzling lights suddenly flash in the night sky 20 miles away, followed by a loud dull sound. However, the two dazzling lights were immediately extinguished. The loud sound also quickly dissipated. Not long after, Burial of Heaven flew back and quietly landed beside Ji Tianxing. Yoon Yarrow couldn't help but ask, "Burial of Heaven, what did you do just now?" Burial of Heaven said in a low voice, "There were two sneaky guys who had been watching from afar, secretly setting up formations and traps. I saw that they were plotting something, so I killed them." Yoon Yarrow was startled. She couldn't help but secretly click her tongue. Burial of Heaven is really ruthless. Those two guys were too unlucky. For the next few hours, the abyss was very calm. After 6 hours, Ji Tianxing's magic power had recovered to 80%. He temporarily ended his cultivation. When he opened his eyes, he felt a burning sensation in his left hand. He looked down. Chapter 12:11. He could tell at a glance that the mysterious golden mark was related to the golden flame that he had refined. The golden flame mark was only as big as a thumb. It was lifelike and revealed a mysterious and powerful aura. Ji Tianxing could faintly feel that his entire left arm had undergone an invisible change. It seemed to be as heavy as a mountain and contained the power to destroy heaven and earth. Could it be that the heaven-mending orb has refined that strand of divine power? Otherwise, why would there be a golden flame mark on the back of my left arm? He frowned doubtfully and quickly checked the heaven-mending orb in his mind. He saw that the white heaven-mending orb was sleeping peacefully in his mind. The strands of golden divine power that were originally in the heaven-mending orb had already disappeared. There was no doubt that the mysterious golden flame had been refined and turned into a mark on the back of his hand. That golden flame is extremely powerful. I wonder what effect it will have after I've refined it. Ji Tianxing was full of expectation. He slowly raised his left arm and urged his magic power to hit the night sky in front of him. Suddenly, a torrential golden divine flame gushed out from his palm and condensed into a 3-meter-long golden spear that was as thick as an arm. The shape of the spear was simple and elegant. It was like a divine spear held by the gods in the legends. It was incomparably sharp and seemed to be able to destroy all obstacles in the world. Whoosh! With an ear-piercing sound, the golden divine spear pierced through the night sky. It was faster than the speed of light and instantly reached a distance of 30 miles away. Immediately after, a dazzling golden light exploded and covered the night sky within a radius of 20 miles. The earth-shattering gravel and dust crazily splashed in all directions. The abyss within a radius of a few dozen miles trembled violently. Countless gullies appeared on the ground and the hard rock walls collapsed for a radius of a few dozen miles. Endless boulders and dust fell from the cliff as if a 1,000-meter-tall mountain had collapsed. The momentum was earth-shattering. Only now did the earth-shattering noise reach Ji Tianxing and Yoon Yarrow's ears. The two of them were immediately stunned. Their eyes widened slightly as they looked at the scene of the mountain collapsing and the ground cracking in disbelief. They exclaimed in surprise, "Tianxing, the rocks on that cliff are even harder than refined steel. How could your spear have such terrifying power when it was thrown out? If that spear had struck the expert in the soul refinement realm, then wouldn't he have been blasted into bits on the spot? The power of that mysterious golden flame is really too strong." Ji Tianxing's emotions were somewhat agitated, and he couldn't help but shout in a low voice, "I clearly only used 20% of my strength just now, and it had such terrifying power. If I were to use my full strength, wouldn't that divine spear be able to kill an expert like Duanmu Peng on the spot?" When he thought of this, he was filled with excitement and anticipation. He really wanted to find an opportunity to test out the power of the golden divine spear at full power. The mysterious golden flame imprint, the ancient dark golden divine spear. I have another ultimate skill that is 10 times more powerful than the burning heaven palm. In the future, when I'm strong enough, I'll be able to unleash the full power of the mysterious golden flame. With a single strike of my divine spear, I'll definitely be able to kill a supreme primordial spirit realm cultivator. I shall call this ultimate skill the God-slaying spear. As he spoke excitedly, He lowered his head to observe the golden flame imprint on the back of his left hand, silently sensing the changes in his strength. Although he had just released the god-slaying spear, he didn't feel any loss of strength or weakness. Apparently, the divine power he had released just now was just a drop in the ocean for the mysterious golden flame. At this moment, Yun Yaro suddenly raised her head to look at the night sky above and reminded, "Tianxing, look at the sky above the abyss." Tianxing looked in the direction she was pointing at and looked up at the sky. He saw specks of light shining in the night sky hundreds of miles high. Balls of golden, blue, and crimson flames flickered in the night sky like fireflies. Tianxing frowned and observed carefully for a while. The corners of his mouth curled into a playful smile as he said, "Ha ha ha, looks like those guys haven't given up yet. They won't give up until they see the coffin. Yaro, let's go and meet them." While talking, he held the broken sword, the burial of heaven, and flew up to the sky above the cliff with Yun Yaro. The two of them kept flying up. After flying for almost 100 miles, they finally left the abyss of the falling god cliff. When the two of them flew to the sky above the cliff, they saw more than 25 colored balls of true origin chi gathering around them. The dazzling light enveloped the figures of human martial artists. Tianxing scanned the area with his soul spirit and found that the 26 warriors were all at the sky origin stage. 7 of them were at the 7th level of the sky origin stage. The other 19 were below the 7th level of the sky origin stage. These people were divided into 9 groups. They gathered in 2s and 3s, keeping a distance from each other. While they were on their guard, they kept looking down at the abyss below them. When Tianxing and Yun Yaro appeared, the gazes of the 26 heaven origin cultivators all gathered on the two of them. Everyone's nerves were taut as they stared at the two of them with gloomy eyes. Their eyes were filled with hostility and coldness. Many of the warriors even closed in on them, holding their swords and sabers as they approached the two of them. Tianxing stepped into the sky, standing in the sea of clouds. He glanced around with disdain and said indifferently, "I am in a good mood tonight. I don't want to kill anyone. Get out of my way if you know what's good for you." There was a trace of soul spirit power in his voice. It was majestic, which frightened the souls of many of the warriors. The 26 heavens origin stage cultivators all froze. Fear flashed through their eyes. However, everyone's desire and fantasy for divine tools and magical treasures surpassed their fear of Tianxing. They were silent for a while. Then they plucked up their courage and approached Tianxing with their swords and sabers. An old man with a goatee and a grey robe spoke. "Kid, I am the vice president of the Association of Adventurers in Tiandang City. Everyone who enters Tiandang City to search for treasures has to get my permission. I don't want to say more. If you know what's good for you, hand over the treasures." The old man in the grey robe was the strongest among them. He was at Sky Origin Stage LV9. Of course, he had been stuck in this stage for over 100 years. He had not made any progress. If he did not have the help of a great opportunity or treasure, he would never be able to enter the soul cultivation stage. Therefore, he wanted the sacred artifact the most. He wanted it more than anyone else. Seeing Tianxing's expressionless face, he added, "Kid, don't try to fool me. The sacred artifact in the abyss must be in your hand." Tianxing stared at him indifferently and said coldly, "You ignorant idiots. Do you think the sacred artifact is as common as cabbages? It can be found everywhere, easily at your fingertips." Chapter 12:12. Only Yun Yaro knew that when Tianxing said that, he was ready to kill. However, the grey-robed old man and the 25 heavens origin experts did not take his words to heart. The grey-robed elder's skinny face sneered. He said in a chilling tone, "Kid, you're too funny. You're still bluffing even now. Do you think we're all 3-year-olds? There are only 2 of you, and we have more than 20. No matter how strong you are, you're going to die here today. Cut the crap, hand over the divine artifact and Dharma treasure, and I can spare your dog life." The grey-robed elder was ready to kill as well. His body exuded a murderous aura, and the sword in his hand shone brightly. Since he had said that, Tianxing did not want to waste any more time. Before he could finish, Ji Tianxing swung the broken sword in his hand and slashed out 6 beams of golden sword light that were over 30 meters long. They flew towards the grey-robed elder and the other experts. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The 6 beams of golden sword light pierced through the dark night sky and arrived before the grey-robed elder. The grey-robed elder and the other 4 divine origin experts were shocked. They swung their swords and sabers in a panic, using all sorts of secret techniques to block the golden sword light. Suddenly, the 5 of them swung their swords and sabers, releasing a dense array of sword light that lit up the sky above the abyss. Bang, bang, bang. The saber light and the sword light clashed, creating a series of muffled sounds that reverberated in the sky. A violent hurricane spread out, immediately blowing away the surrounding clouds and rolling up the dust and gravel. The attacks of the 5 Heaven Origin stage cultivators were instantly shattered by the golden sword radiance and collapsed. The 5 of them were hit by the golden sword light. Blood and broken limbs splattered everywhere as they screamed in agony. The grey-robed elder had one of his legs cut off by the golden sword light. He was in so much pain that he was twitching all over. The other 4 divine origin experts had their limbs cut off as well. They were badly injured, and blood was pouring out of their bodies. This scene stunned everyone. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. No one had expected that Ji Tianxing's strength would actually be so formidable. However, the grey-robed elder endured the pain and roared in rage, "What are you waiting for? Let's kill him together, you bunch of idiots. Are you going to watch him take the artifact away?" The divine origin experts came back to their senses. Their fighting spirit was ignited by his words. They quickly swung their swords and weapons, unleashing all sorts of secret techniques to attack. "Let's go together and kill that kid. There's so many of us. We don't have to be afraid of him. Even if he has 3 heads and 6 arms, he will die. Take the artifact away from us. In your dreams. As long as we get the artifact, it's worth it. The opportunity to soar is right in front of us. If you want to become a soul-refining cultivator, you have to rely on the artifact. Everyone was roaring with excitement. Their fighting spirit was soaring, and they unleashed an overwhelming amount of sword light, as well as a flood of flames. They attacked Ji Tianxing and Yun Yarrow with all their might. Yun Yarrow shouted coldly. She controlled the Star Dharma Eye and unleashed the ultimate move of the Star Sword technique, unleashing thousands of sword light. She waved the cold moon sword in her right hand and unleashed a moonlight blade towards the crowd. Ji Tianxing did not show any mercy. He waved the broken sword in his hand and unleashed 36 dazzling white light swords towards the crowd. The 2 parties engaged in a fierce battle in the air above the cliff. All sorts of colorful lights and shadows shrouded the sky within a 20-mile radius, illuminating the night sky. The raging energy dispersed the clouds and mist in the night sky, and the surrounding mountains were on the verge of collapsing from the impact. Boom, boom, boom. The earth-shattering noises kept exploding in the night sky, spreading to hundreds of miles away. What a magnificent battle! However, the earth-shattering battle only lasted for 20 breaths of time before it was over. Ji Tianxing had only used 3 secret techniques, while Yun Yarrow had only used 4 sword techniques. More than 20 Heaven Origin stage experts had been killed. The first person to be killed was the grey-robed elder. His body was cut in half by several sword light. His head was separated from his body. His round head was thrown into the night sky and then fell off the cliff. The 4 Heaven Origin stage experts who were following him were also minced into pieces by the sword light. Not even a complete corpse was left behind. Other than that, 16 other Heaven Origin stage experts were killed on the spot. Their heads were separated from their bodies, and they died miserably. The remaining 5 experts were lucky enough to survive, but they were also covered in blood. Their arms and legs were broken, and their injuries were extremely serious. On the other hand, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yarrow were not only unharmed, but also unscathed. They were also calm and composed, as if they had done it effortlessly. When the 5 lucky survivors saw this scene, they finally understood how powerful the 2 of them were. The 5 of them were scared out of their wits. Their fighting will and killing intent had melted like snow. Divine artifacts and Dharma treasures were indeed attractive and could make people dizzy and lose their minds. However, the threat of death was even more terrifying. They were scared out of their wits. Between divine artifacts and Dharma treasures, they chose to save their lives. Swish, 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 swish. The 5 of them tried to run away at the fastest speed they had ever run in their lives, despite their serious injuries. However, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yarrow used their capturing techniques and unleashed a gigantic palm of golden light and a gigantic palm of stars that blotted out the sky. They were immediately pulled back. Ji Tianxing caught 3 experts with the giant golden hands, and Yun Yarrow caught 2 with the giant hands of stars. The 5 experts were caught and brought back to the sky above the cliff. They were all struggling desperately, but it was useless. After struggling for a while, the 5 of them were filled with desperation and fear. 2 of them even cried and begged for mercy. Their postures were extremely humble. "Young hero. No, sir, please have mercy on us. Please spare our lowly lives. We were blind and shouldn't have harbored evil thoughts. Ancestors, please take pity on us and let us live." In order to survive, the 2 tall middle-aged men begged for mercy in such a humble way. Seeing this, the other 3 experts also imitated them and begged for mercy. They called Ji Tianxing and Yun Yarrow their ancestors. Ji Tianxing's killing intent had been aroused, and he was prepared to kill them all with a single strike. However, seeing their pathetic appearance, the killing intent in his heart dissipated a lot. Yun Yarrow also couldn't bear it. She turned to look at him and asked through telepathy, "Tianxing, how should we deal with them?" Ji Tianxing frowned and thought for a while. He said, "Forget it. They were just possessed. We don't have any deep hatred for them. Let them live." "Okay," Yun Yarrow nodded quickly. She released the giant hands of stars and released the 2 Heaven Prime experts. Ji Tianxing also released the giant golden hands and threw the 3 experts onto the cliff. The 5 experts felt as if they had been pardoned. They knelt on the ground gratefully and kowtowed to the 2 of them. Chapter 12-13. It was deep into the night now. The night sky was gloomy. There were a few stars high up in the sky that shone brightly. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yarrow flew through the night sky together as a streak of light. As they traveled, Yun Yarrow asked Ji Tianxing secretly, "Tianxing, we've already found the Godfall Cliff. There's no Neptunian pearl below it. Where do we go next? Do we continue searching for the Neptunian pearl?" Ji Tianxing nodded. He gazed towards the east and said calmly, "We don't have a lot of time left. The chances of finding the Neptunian pearl are very slim as well, so we can't waste time. Next, we need to go to the Eastern Sea's ruins end, find the Sun-Moon furnace, and investigate the situation there." Yun Yarrow frowned in doubt. She asked with interest, "The Sun-Moon furnace? That sounds very profound. Tianxing, do you know about that forbidden ground?" "Yeah." Ji Tianxing nodded again and explained to her, "Before I went to the northern desert to save you, I went to the Eastern Sea's ruins end once and found the Sun-Moon furnace. That place is indeed a rare sight. Seawater flows into the sky, the sun sinks to the bottom of the sea, and the moon shines brightly." He explained the wonders of the Sun-Moon furnace to Yun Yarrow. Yun Yarrow was entranced. She imagined the corresponding scene in her head and found it unbelievable. However, when she calmed down and thought about it carefully, she felt that something was off. "Tianxing, you've already been to the Eastern Sea's ruins end and seen the Sun-Moon furnace, but you failed to sense the presence of the Neptunian pearl back then. Now that we've taken the risk to enter the Eastern Sea's ruins end, aren't we destined to return empty-handed?" Ji Tianxing shook his head and said sternly, "When I found the Sun-Moon furnace last time, I waited outside the entire time. I did not enter the furnace at the bottom of the sea, so I did not investigate the situation inside. That person told me that the Neptunian pearl might be hidden in the Sun-Moon furnace. I'd rather believe it and investigate it again. Moreover, the Neptunian pearl you fused with was found in the Eastern Sea's ruins end. I feel like if there's a second Neptunian divine pearl on the profound sky continent, it's probably in the Eastern Sea's end as well." After listening to his analysis, Yun Yarrow also felt that it was very reasonable, so she nodded in agreement. The 2 of them continued to fly towards the east. 10 days later, the two of them had been flying non-stop. They were mentally exhausted and had used up a lot of their magic power. Thus, when the two of them passed by a bustling city, they stopped to rest in the city. This city covered an area of 100 miles and had a population of nearly 1 million. The city was bustling with noise and excitement as cultivators from all over the world gathered here. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yarrow entered the city together. They strolled around the city and replenished some spiritual stones, elixirs, and other resources before entering the inn to rest. The two of them kept a low profile. They were neither ostentatious nor vigilant. After all, this was just a city in the mortal world. There were no sects or powerful forces in the city. The commoners and martial artists in the city were all at the bottom of the social ladder, so they basically did not recognize geniuses like them. However, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yarrow did not know that among the commoners and martial artists that they had ignored, there were actually a few people who were secretly following them. At night, the city quieted down. Those few martial artists hid around the inn and secretly observed. It was not until dawn that those few martial artists left quietly and used a secret technique to send out a message. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yarrow meditated for the whole night. The next morning, when they had recovered their energy, they left the inn and continued their journey. The journey from the central continent to the East Sea was very long. If Ji Tianxing had traveled alone, he would only need 20 days to reach the Black Rock City by the East Sea. However, he had brought Yun Yarrow with him, so their speed would be slower. It would take at least a month for them to arrive. After 20 days, the two of them had traveled more than half of the journey and were getting closer and closer to the East Sea. That evening, the two of them temporarily stopped their journey and entered another city to rest. After they entered the city, they strolled around the city for a while before finding an inn to stay in. After nightfall, the two of them meditated in the inn and quickly recovered their magic power. In the darkness around the inn, a few sneaky figures appeared. They scattered and hid in the dark, observing silently. In the early morning, Ji Tianxing suddenly felt that something was wrong. He felt that it was a little strange, so he released his divine soul power to explore the surroundings. However, those few martial artists who were hiding in the dark seemed to be very vigilant. They all retreated silently. Ji Tianxing was more careful and was secretly on guard. However, those few martial artists did not appear again. Early the next morning, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yarrow left the inn and continued their journey to the East Sea. In the next few days, everything was calm and peaceful. There were no twists and turns on the way. However, Ji Tianxing was still thinking about what happened before. He felt that something was wrong. He had a vague bad feeling. It was evening again, and he and Yun Yarrow were flying in the air above a vast forest. The setting sun hung in the sky and gradually fell toward the horizon. The golden sunlight shone on the clouds in the sky and sprinkled on the two of them. The two of them communicated via voice transmission as they hurried along. Ji Tianxing said to Yun Yarrow, Yarrow, we are already close to the East Sea coast. We are still 3 days away from Black Rock City. Divine General Donglin is overseeing Black Rock City. After we reach Black Rock City, we will rest there for a few days before heading to the East Sea's returning ruins. Yun Yarrow nodded and said in a gentle voice, Tianxing, you have been to the East Sea's returning ruins. You are more familiar with the route here. We will follow your plan and arrangements. In the past half a month, I have also been comprehending and pondering a secret technique on the way. When we reach Black Rock City, I can cultivate in peace for a few days and strive to comprehend that secret technique as soon as possible. Ji Tianxing revealed a gratified smile as he nodded slightly and said, the soul refinement realm is a realm that transcends the mortal martial Tao. After reaching this realm, your potential, talent, and comprehension will increase by leaps and bounds. Only then will you be able to gradually reveal your true talent. I believe that before long, you will be able to catch up to me or even surpass me. Yun Yarrow glanced at him and smiled faintly. I know you want to encourage me, but that's not realistic. You are the greatest genius of the continent. No one can match your rate of growth. Ji Tianxing smiled in amusement. He said firmly, that's right. If we both enter secluded cultivation, it might be very difficult for you to catch up to me. However, Don't forget that once we find the second Neptunian divine pearl, you will transform once more. Your strength will skyrocket and your cultivation will skyrocket. A sliver of eagerness appeared in Yoon Yaro's eyes. She nodded, I hope so. Before long, the sun had completely set and night descended. Heaven and earth turned dark. The vast sea of trees and the rolling mountains beneath their feet also became hazy and blurry. However, at this moment, a dazzling streak of light suddenly appeared in the night sky behind them. Chapter 12:14. When Ji Tianxing and Yoon Yaro discovered the white light, they were still 50 miles away from each other. Ji Tianxing turned his head to look at the white dragon-like shadow. He frowned and revealed a serious expression. With his keen observation skills, he could naturally see that there was a person in the white dragon-like shadow. It was a tall and sturdy middle-aged man with a dignified aura. He wore a purple robe. The purple-robed man's entire body lit up with the white light of the divine soul. He exuded a powerful aura. When he flew, he could control the power of heaven and earth. Without a doubt, he was an elite of the soul-tempering realm. Moreover, Ji Tianxing could feel that the purple-robed man's strength was only slightly weaker than Duan Mu Peng's. After 2 breaths, the purple-robed man flew 40 miles away and arrived near Ji Tianxing and Yoon Yao. Swoosh! The purple-robed man stopped and stood proudly in the night sky 10 miles away from the two of them. The white light around his body gradually faded and revealed his true form. He stared coldly at Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing and Yoon Yaro also stared at him and observed him carefully. Tianxing, who is this person? It seems that they have come with ill intentions and are quite hostile towards us. Yoon Yaro's beautiful brows furrowed slightly as she secretly asked through voice transmission. Ji Tianxing's expression didn't change, but he secretly transmitted his voice. I don't know this guy either, but he looks a little familiar. Maybe he's here for me. This person's strength is around the 6th level of the soul-tempering realm. It's rare to see an elite of this level on the continent. Yoon Yaro frowned and thought for a while. She said with a worried tone, Tianxing, this person's strength is on par with my father. In the Tianxian continent, an elite of this level can at least be ranked in the top 20. As long as he makes a move, he will expose his identity. It's not difficult for us to guess who he is. Ji Tianxing only nodded slightly and did not say anything. He stared coldly at the purple-robed man and was secretly on guard. He was silently accumulating magic power in his body, ready to attack at any time. Who are you? I don't know you. Why did you come here in the middle of the night? He asked with a cold expression, his tone low and dignified. The purple-robed man glared at him with eyes as sharp as swords. The corners of his mouth curled up into a sinister sneer. He said in a low and hoarse voice, Ji Tianxing, are you still playing dumb? Do you know that since you killed my son, I've been unable to eat or sleep in peace for over a year? Every time I close my eyes, I would imagine the scene of me tearing you into pieces before burning your bones and scattering your ashes. I've waited for this day for over 460 days. Tonight, you will definitely die. I swear I will crush you into pieces and turn you into ashes. The purple-robed man's tone revealed extreme hatred and resentment. He gritted his teeth as if he wanted to skin Ji Tianxing alive and eat his flesh and drink his blood to vent his anger. Ji Tianxing and Yoon Yaro were both startled. They looked at each other with a solemn expression. Obviously, both of them had guessed the purple-robed man's identity. You are the master of the Murong family? Murong Zheng, it's you. The purple-robed man sneered and said in a low voice, Hey, Ji Tianxing, you're not too stupid. You've finally guessed my identity. That's right. I'm Murong Lingfeng's father, the master of the Murong family, Murong Zheng. Murong Zheng admitted his identity on the spot. As he spoke, he adjusted his purple robe and sleeves. His entire body emitted an earth-shattering domineering aura. He stared at Ji Tianxing like lightning and shouted angrily, Little bastard, since you know my identity, you should know that you will definitely die. There's no luck. Surrender and I can only kill you and spare your wife, Yoon Yao. Otherwise, I don't mind killing both of you and making you a pair of lovebird. Hearing Murong Zheng's words, Ji Tianxing couldn't help but sneer. He shouted coldly, Murong Zheng, Since you've been hiding for more than a year, you must know that you can't kill me. You and I are both powerhouses of the human race. We're under the jurisdiction of the Imperial Court. I'm now the Tianchen Region Lord, the #1 genius of the human race. Do you dare to kill me? The Imperial Court will never spare you. Even the entire Murong family will be destroyed because of you. Ji Tianxing looked fearless. His words were filled with confidence. He sneered and said, "Even if you've been hiding for so long, you've tried to kill me in this desolate mountain. You thought that no one would know about this and that it wouldn't be exposed. However, after more than a year, I'm no longer who I used to be. You're no match for me at all." Seeing that he was so confident and arrogant, Murong Zheng shouted angrily, "Ji Tianxing, you're too arrogant. No matter how talented you are, you're only at the 3rd level of the spirit cultivation stage. It's easy for me to kill you personally. Killing you is as easy as killing a dog. Moreover, I've been hiding for more than a year. I've been carefully planning for a year. I've placed spies in all the cities of the continent to monitor your movements. I've spent so much effort and finally got this great opportunity. How can I let you go? Even if you talk a lot and bring up the Imperial Court, it's useless. I'll definitely kill you. Even the heavens won't be able to stop me." Murong Zheng's angry voice echoed in the night sky. It was so loud that even the deaf could hear it. Seeing that he was determined to kill, Ji Tianxing couldn't help but sneer, "Hey, Murong Zheng, I didn't plan to kill you. For the sake of the Imperial Court, I didn't want to kill the Murong family. I didn't think that you would hold on to this matter and send yourself to me. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. These nameless mountains, rivers, and forests will be the place where you, Murong Zheng, will be buried." Murong Zheng suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. His tone was extremely sarcastic. "Ha ha ha. Little bastard, I'll let you know in a moment how ridiculous your arrogance is." As he spoke, he slowly raised his right hand and a ball of dark yellow light lit up in his palm. Whoosh! Within the ball of light, there were 4 flags of different colors that were spinning around. The 4 small flags were simple and exquisite. They emitted an aura of vicissitudes. It was obvious that they were top-level spirit treasures. This was the Murong family's heirloom, the 4 spirit saint flags. The flag was as black as ink. There was a divine turtle carved on it. It was the northern black tortoise. The flag was as red as fire. There was a divine beast carved on it. It was the southern vermilion bird. The dark green flag was carved with a lifelike azure dragon. It was made of the eastern first ye wood. The white flag was carved with a white tiger. It was made of the western 7th metal chi. It was an unparalleled killing weapon. Murong Zheng cast a spell with both hands and released a vast amount of magic power. He urged the 4 flags to fly into the sky. They flew 50 miles away and landed in the 4 directions. Suddenly, the 4 saint flags lit up with various colors and drew upon the power of heaven and earth. They formed a light barrier with a radius of 100 miles and sealed off this area. Chapter 12:15. When the 4 spirits' heaven sealing array was formed, the area within a 100-mile radius was shrouded in colorful light. The huge light shield was like a canopy in the sky. It was like an inverted bowl that suppressed Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao. The array gathered the power of heaven and earth and suppressed Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao invisibly. It increased the pressure on them and made it difficult for them to move. Even the circulation of their magic energy was obstructed and restricted, causing it to become extremely obstructed and difficult to move. The 4 spirits' sacred flag. Damn Murong Zheng. He actually used the Murong family's treasure. It seems like he's determined to kill me, Ji Tianxing murmured with a gloomy face. His eyes were very serious. At this moment, Murong Zheng took out a mid-grade soul-level ice blue sword and pointed it at him. He shouted angrily, "Ji Tianxing, it's time for you to die. Pay with your life for my son, Ling Feng." As soon as he finished speaking, he waved the ice blue sword and released a vast amount of magic power. He slashed out 3 huge swords that were 1,000 feet long and charged towards Ji Tianxing. Each of the huge swords was ice blue like a huge icicle. They emitted a bone-chilling aura that caused the air within a 10-mile radius to freeze. Ji Tianxing stared at the three huge swords with a serious face. A golden light flashed in his right palm and the broken sword, Burial of Heaven, appeared. Metal Emperor Slash. He did not dare to let his guard down when facing an experienced powerhouse like Murong Zheng. He used an exquisite sword technique as soon as he made his move. The huge golden sword that was 1,000 feet long slashed towards the three ice blue swords with an indestructible power. Bam! In a deafening sound, the swords collided with each other and exploded into fragments of light that filled the sky. It created a violent and terrifying shockwave. Only one of the three ice blue swords was broken. The remaining two continued to slash towards Ji Tianxing. The two giant ice blue swords were about to strike Ji Tianxing from the left and right. At this critical moment, he quickly shook the golden cape behind him and turned it into a pair of golden wings to protect himself. Bang bang! The two giant ice blue swords slashed at the golden wings with a loud bang, but they shattered into ice fragments that filled the sky. Ji Tianxing was not injured at all. He spread his golden wings and was about to brandish his broken sword to counterattack Murong Zheng. At this moment, a white light suddenly appeared in the night sky 1,000 meters away from him and Yun Yao. It was a dazzling white sword aura that silently appeared behind him, stabbing towards him at a speed faster than the speed of light. Ji Tianxing only stared at Murong Zheng and focused all his attention on him. He did not expect that there was someone else hiding behind him. By the time he sensed that something was amiss and discovered that there was a soul refinement realm expert hiding in the middle of the battlefield, it was already too late. Murong Zheng was crazily attacking from the front, and a mysterious expert was trying to assassinate him from behind. He was attacked from both front and back, his blood would splatter everywhere. Even if he didn't die, he would be seriously injured. At this critical moment, Yun Yao, who had been guarding by his side, stepped forward without hesitation and blocked his back with her sword. Moonblade Sky Strike. Yun Yao didn't think too much about it. She just wanted to help Ji Tianxing block the sneak attack of the strong enemy. She didn't want to see Ji Tianxing get injured, so she didn't care about her own safety at all. Bang! That dazzling sword light collided with Yun Yao's moonlight blade with a loud bang, exploding with a muffled sound. The silver moonblade collapsed on the spot. The dazzling white sword aura pierced through the silver light fragments and stabbed Yun Yao. Puff! The incomparably sharp sword light pierced through her left shoulder, almost chopping off her left arm at the root. Bright red blood suddenly splashed out and bloomed in the night sky. It was mournful and dazzling. Yun Yao was seriously injured. She immediately opened her mouth and spat out a stream of blood. She couldn't help but fly backward. Ji Tianxing had just blocked Murong Zheng's strong attack. He turned his head and saw Yun Yao flying out with blood all over her body. He immediately roared in anger. No. At that moment, his heart was in his throat and his nerves were tense. He was so angry that the top of his head was numb and his eyes were bloodshot. His unparalleled anger and killing intent turned his eyes dark red as if he was possessed by the devil. Swoosh! He rushed out in a flash and held Yun Yao in his arms. He checked her injuries worriedly. He saw that the left side of Yun Yao's body was badly mutilated. Her white clothes and skirt were dyed red with blood. Her face was pale and her forehead was covered in cold sweat. She was also a little tired. However, she gritted her teeth and endured her injuries. She didn't even scream in pain. She even shook her head at Ji Tianxing, indicating that he didn't need to worry. Tianxing. Don't worry about me. I'm fine. Be careful. There's another sneak attack. Ji Tianxing originally wanted to transfer some of his power to her to help her heal her injuries. However, Murong Zheng laughed complacently as he brandished his sword and charged over again. The mysterious powerhouse hiding in the dark released a few cold lights again and attacked him viciously. The situation was critical. Ji Tianxing didn't have time to think or hesitate. He made a prompt decision to open the sword world and put Yun Yao inside. He let her heal in Antwi City. At the same time, he summoned the Golden Mountain King to help him fight. The Golden Mountain King was eager to fight. He rushed out of the sword world and rushed toward the mysterious powerhouse hiding in the dark with his dark golden hammer. Ji Tianxing fought Murong Zheng with all his strength. He waved his broken sword and used his secret technique to fight with him in the night sky. Murong Zheng used his secret technique and released 9 ice-blue dragons that were thousands of feet long. They came crashing down with the power to destroy heaven and earth. Ji Tianxing faced his secret technique head-on. He pulled out his broken sword and slashed with his strongest power. Draw your sword. An unparalleled sharp and extremely fast sword projection of 1,000 feet instantly pierced through the night sky and struck the neck of one of the ice-blue dragons. Bam! With a muffled sound, the ice-blue dragon was cut in half by the sword light and shattered into pieces. Then, the power of the white sword light didn't decrease at all. It cut the second ice-blue dragon in half. Murong Zheng realized that something was wrong. His pupils contracted. He was very afraid of the power of this sword technique. Just as he was about to dodge, the white sword light was already in front of him and hit him. Kaboom! With a loud sound, his protective Dharma power was shattered by the sword light. He was sent flying. Even though he was wearing a low-grade soul-level armor, the blazing white sword light still managed to leave a crack on his armor. The purple robe on his chest and abdomen was torn. A long and narrow wound appeared. Dark red blood kept flowing out. The terrifying force of impact pushed him back 1,000 meters before he finally managed to neutralize the force and stop his retreat. At the same time, Ji Tianxing used the sword soul battle technique. His body flashed across the night sky like a ghost. He passed through the ice-blue dragons and rushed in front of him. Murong Zheng, you damned old man! How dare you ask other powerhouses to help you kill me? You cowardly beast! What truly angered Ji Tianxing was not Murong Zheng's attempt to kill him. It was Murong Zheng who found help and injured Yun Yarrow with a sneak attack. Chapter 12:16. When the mysterious elite appeared, Ji Tianxing understood everything. For more than a year, Murong Zheng appeared to be holding back, but in fact, he was secretly plotting to avenge Murong Lingfeng. Murong Zheng was placing spies in various cities in the mainland, using the Murong family's powerful intelligence network to monitor his whereabouts and movements. Moreover, Murong Zheng even found a mysterious elite to help him. He finally took action when he was fully confident. However, Murong Zheng was not ashamed. Instead, he was proud of it. Ji Tianxing did not want to waste any more time with him. He waved the broken sword with all his might and stabbed at Murong Zheng. Murong Zheng, you old B*****, die. Whoosh. A cold light suddenly appeared, carrying with it the power to destroy everything. It instantly traversed 1,000 meters in the sky and arrived in front of Murong Zheng. Murong Zheng did not expect that Ji Tianxing's swordsmanship had reached such a marvelous level. It was simply superb and unbelievable. Damn it. I've actually underestimated you. At the critical moment, he shouted angrily and immediately used the power of the 4 holy flags to teleport 10 miles to the left. Swoosh. With a flash of light, Murong Zheng moved 5 kilometers away, narrowly dodging this sword attack. The sword radiance, which had been condensed to the extreme, traversed dozens of miles in the night sky and stabbed into a huge mountain, exploding in an instant. Boom. Following an earth-shattering explosion, the mountain was blasted into pieces on the spot, turning into endless gravel and dust that splashed out in all directions. The dazzling white sword radiance also exploded like a mushroom cloud. It was even more dazzling than the sun. The night sky within a radius of dozens of miles was illuminated by the white light. The huge mountain disappeared into thin air, leaving only a deep pit in its original place. With the huge mountain as the center, within a radius of 30 miles, the ground cracked open. The mountain shook and a huge crack appeared. Seeing this scene, Murong Zheng's pupils constricted. His face became serious, and his eyes were filled with shock. After seeing the power of the sword, he was very glad that he had dodged it. If it were not for the power of the 4 holy flags, he would have been stabbed by the sword. Even if he did not die, he would be seriously injured. Murong, you old thief. Don't even think about escaping. Hand over your life. Ji Tianxing's sword missed, but he was not discouraged. He brandished his broken sword again and attacked Murong Zheng. Murong Zheng saw that he had gone mad and his murderous aura was soaring to the heavens, so he didn't dare to fight him head-on. He hurriedly dodged. He controlled the power of the four-spirit saint flag and used the power of the domain to constantly teleport, flashing in and out of the night sky, making it impossible for Ji Tianxing to touch him. On the other hand, Ji Tianxing was suppressed by the power of the invisible domain. His speed became slower and slower, and his mana consumption became more and more intense. Ji Tianxing was filled with rage. His heart was filled with murderous intent, but he couldn't release it. He repeatedly cursed Murong Zheng as an old turtle. As Murong Zheng's situation became safer and safer, he laughed even more proudly. Ha ha ha! Ji Tianxing, no matter how talented you are, you can't do anything to me. You are destined to be buried here. You will die young and pay for my son, Ling Feng. Ji Tianxing's face was cold as he shouted angrily, "Dream on, old man, not only will I kill your son, I will also kill you and destroy your Murong family. Just wait and see. After I kill you, I will exterminate all the descendants of the Murong family." As he spoke, he desperately flew back and forth, chasing after Murong Zheng. Murong Zheng was not in a hurry to fight him head-on. He kept flying back and forth in the domain, fighting with him and stalling for time. His purpose was obvious. He wanted to wait for the mysterious expert to kill the Golden Mountain King, then join forces with him to kill Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing saw through his intention, so he went to check on the Golden Mountain King. He saw that the Golden Mountain King had already entered the ground and was chasing after a middle-aged man in a black robe. The Golden Mountain King was from the Earth Spirit clan. Fighting in the underground rock layer was very advantageous for him. Logically speaking, he should have the upper hand in the underground battle because he was more proficient in the underground battle. However, the truth was the opposite. The black-robed man's strength had reached LV5 soul cultivation realm. Moreover, the black-robed man was also good at escaping into the ground and assassinating. He was like a fish in water when fighting underground. After dozens of moves, the black-robed man obviously had the upper hand. He was forcing the Golden Mountain King to retreat and his injuries were getting worse. As time passed, the golden armor that the Golden Mountain King was wearing cracked. His body was covered with wounds and blood was flowing out. His strength was getting weaker and weaker. He could no longer take the initiative to attack and could only defend himself. At most, he would be severely injured or even killed by the black-robed man in 100 breaths' time. Seeing this, Ji Tianxing frowned and weighed the pros and cons. He temporarily gave up on Murong Zheng and turned around to dive into the underground. He wanted to join forces with the Golden Mountain King to kill the mysterious expert in the black robe first, then deal with Murong Zheng. However, just as he was about to turn around and leave, Murong Zheng took the opportunity to use his unique skill and rushed toward him. Heavenly Wind Slash! Murong Zheng shouted angrily and waved his ice-blue treasure sword. Borrowing the strength of the wind, he slashed out tens of thousands of icy sword radiances. Swoosh! 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 Tens of thousands of icy blue giant swords formed a 10,000-meter tall tornado and swept toward Ji Tianxing. After the powerful tornado enveloped Ji Tianxing, it crazily strangled him, wanting to crush him into pieces. He quickly spread his golden wings to protect himself. Tens of thousands of icy blue sword radiances slashed at the golden wings and made ear-piercing sounds of friction. However, the golden wings were still safe and sound. There was not even a crack on them. After 10 breaths' time, the tornado that covered the sky gradually dissipated. Ji Tianxing's figure appeared and he was still unharmed. Murong Zheng, you old bastard. After I kill that bastard, I will kill you later. Ji Tianxing cursed angrily and flew toward the Golden Mountain King again. Murong Zheng would not let him do as he wished. He sneered and waved his ice-blue treasure sword again and charged toward Murong Zheng. Heavenly Frost Ice Dragon Break! Murong Zheng shouted and the ice-blue treasure sword in his hands turned into a 1,000-meter giant sword and slashed toward Ji Tianxing from the sky. He had thought that Ji Tianxing would not have time to worry about him as he was in a hurry to save the Golden Mountain King. Even if this earth-shattering slash could not severely injure Ji Tianxing, it could at least injure him. More importantly, this slash could slow him down and prevent him from saving the Golden Mountain King. However, Murong Zheng did not expect that Ji Tianxing was lying to him. When he held his ice-blue treasure sword and slashed toward Ji Tianxing suddenly turned around and looked at him with a cold smile. "Old bastard, you are really in a hurry to die." Ji Tianxing was obviously prepared and had a plan in mind. He grinned coldly and waved his sword to attack Yi Shiwen. He ignored the ice-blue treasure sword that was descending from the sky and used his piercing sword technique to stab toward Murong Zheng. Chapter 12:17. Whoosh! A cold light suddenly appeared and immediately bloomed with a bang, illuminating the sky. The cold light directly pierced through Murong Zheng's abdomen and suddenly exploded inside his body. Bang! In the deafening loud noise, a dazzling white light bloomed, illuminating the night sky. His body was covered by the white light, making it impossible to see his appearance clearly. Only his shrill scream could be heard. Ah! The white light wave covered a radius of 20 miles and gradually dissipated after a few breaths. The loud noise also gradually stopped and the night sky gradually returned to normal. They saw that Murong Zheng had fallen from the sky and was lying in the forest below. A large hole was smashed in the dense forest. The surrounding trees were all knocked to the ground by the shockwave, their branches and leaves broken into pieces. Murong Zheng, who had been majestic just a moment ago, was now only left with half of his body. Everything below his waist had disappeared. Looking around, there were only drops of blood and minced meat on the ground. Not even a complete bone could be found. The power of this sword was actually so terrifying. Murong Zheng, who only had half of his body left, was lying in the large hole covered in blood. He was still twitching in pain and screaming. His long hair was disheveled and covered in blood and mud. His hands and chest were also badly mutilated, and blood was constantly flowing out of them. However, even though he was severely injured and looked extremely miserable, he would not die. The power of his soul was still strong. He endured the heart-wrenching pain and stretched out his blood-stained hands. He grabbed the mud and the edge of the large hole and slowly climbed out. Ji Tianxing flew down from the sky and stood above the crater. He looked down at Murong Zheng from above and said expressionlessly, "Murong Zheng, your plan has failed. Now, the person who is going to die is you. Go to hell." With that, he waved his broken sword and slashed out a soul sword radiance towards Murong Zheng in the large hole. Murong Zheng's injuries were too serious. He used his magic power to escape from the deep hole, but he could not avoid this sword. He was about to be killed by Ji Tianxing's sword. At this critical moment, there was a dazzling white sword radiance diagonally behind him. It was as fast as lightning. Boom! This 30-meter-long sword light blocked Ji Tianxing's sword, and a muffled sound rang out. The two sword lights exploded at the same time, exploding into fragments that scattered in all directions. Soon after, a black figure flew over and lifted Murong Zheng out of the deep pit with his big hand. Ji Tianxing took a closer look and saw that it was the black-robed man, Murong Zheng's accomplice. This person's body was thin, and his face was long and narrow and yellow. He had a goatee on his chin, and his eyes were long and narrow and deep. At a glance, one could tell that he was not a good person. Ji Tianxing memorized this person's appearance, but he felt that it was very unfamiliar. He couldn't help but ask, "Who are you? Why are you helping Murong Zheng? Why are you helping him?" The black-robed man looked at him from the corner of his eyes. His eyes were cold as he sneered and said in a mocking tone, "Helping the tyrant? Brat, the one who should die is you. A life for a life, a debt must be paid with money. You killed my nephew Ling Feng, so you should be executed." "Murong Ling Feng is your nephew?" Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and asked doubtfully, "Could it be that you are Murong Zheng's brother, a member of the Murong family?" "Of course not," the black-robed man subconsciously denied. While he was dawdling with Ji Tianxing, he injected magic power into Murong Zheng and fed him a soul-level elixir to help him suppress his injuries. "Brat, we all misjudged you. I didn't expect that you, a mere level 3 soul cultivation stage cultivator, could injure senior brother Murong. However, don't be happy too early. I'm afraid that your shorty companion won't be able to survive." The black-robed man glanced at the ruins in the distance and sneered at Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing quickly released his soul strength and looked at the ruins 20 miles away. He saw that in the deep pit of the ruins, The Golden Mountain King was lying in the mud, covered in blood. His body was trembling and twitching. The golden armor he was wearing was completely shattered and turned into a pile of broken copper and iron pieces. The dark gold war hammer fell to the side and its light dimmed. His body was covered with dozens of wounds, all of which were so deep that his bones could be seen. It was even to the extent that his left arm and right leg had been blasted into pieces. The real fatal wound was on his neck. The sword had cut open his blood vessels and almost beheaded him. Fortunately, the Golden Mountain King was a soul cultivation stage cultivator. If he was a heaven's origin stage cultivator, he would have died on the spot. Seeing the Golden Mountain King's miserable injuries, Ji Tianxing frowned and his eyes and expression became gloomy. He stared at the black-robed man and shouted angrily, "You bastard! You are so cruel. I will never let you go." The black-robed man was not angry. He slowly retreated with Murong Zheng. He even sneered and said, "Hey, everyone is the same. If you don't want your partner to die, then don't waste your time here." Ji Tianxing frowned and looked at the black-robed man. He knew that the black-robed man was plotting something. He might run away with Murong Zheng when he went to save the Golden Mountain King. However, even if he knew the black-robed man's intention, he could not leave him in the lurch. The Golden Mountain King was in a critical condition. If he did not receive treatment soon, his body would be completely destroyed. By then, even if the Golden Mountain King survived, he would have to go into seclusion for 100 years to recover his body. Thinking of this, Ji Tianxing turned around and flew toward the Golden Mountain King without hesitation. Sure enough, when he turned around and flew away, the black-robed man immediately took Murong Zheng and fled into the night sky. "Senior brother Murong, this man's strength is too terrifying. We should retreat." Murong Zheng's injuries were temporarily suppressed and his broken waist was no longer bleeding. However, when he heard the black-robed man's words, he shouted unwillingly, "No. Junior brother Ji, I have been planning for a year and finally got this chance to kill Ji Tianxing. Once I miss this chance, it will be difficult to kill him in the future. He is very cunning and will not give me a second chance." The black-robed man with the surname Ji said in a serious tone, "Senior brother Murong, I understand how you feel. I also want to kill that man to avenge my nephew Lingfeng. However, you are already injured. Even you are no match for him. What can I do to him? If this drags on, I am afraid both of us will be in trouble. This is not a wise move." Murong Zheng extended his hand to wipe the blood off his face. His lips curled into a sinister smile as he took out a dark golden metal ball from his space ring. He. Junior brother Ji, you have underestimated me. Even if I am seriously injured by that little bastard, I still have the Four Spirits sacred flag and this magic treasure. After Master passed this magic treasure to me, I have not used it for 100 years. Today, I can finally put it to good use." The black-robed man stared at the metal ball for a moment. Suddenly, his expression changed drastically. His eyes widened as he shouted, "This is Xuanye Golden Embryo? Master actually passed it on to you?" Chapter 12:18. The Soul Tempering Realm was a watershed in martial arts. Below the Soul Tempering Realm, even the Sky Origin Realm experts were limited to the mortal world. Their strength and power were limited. However, once they entered the Soul Tempering Realm, they would surpass the limits of the mortal world. Martial artists would have all kinds of incredible abilities. For example, they could live for 1,000 years, and their soul would not die even if their physical body was destroyed. The doppelganger technique was also one of the martial arts techniques. There were two types, the soul doppelganger and the doppelganger. The soul doppelganger was easy to understand. It was a doppelganger formed by the power of the soul. However, this doppelganger was only an illusion and not a physical body. Although it had all kinds of magical uses, it also had its corresponding flaws and shortcomings. The doppelganger technique was similar to the puppet technique. It required a strong body to contain the soul of the martial artist. The thing that was refined into an avatar could be a corpse, a demonic beast, or even some kind of magic treasure. The Xuanye golden embryo in Murong Zheng's hand was a human body. It was a top magical treasure refined by his master. He activated his magic power and poured it into the Xuanye golden embryo. The golden embryo suddenly shone with a dazzling golden light. It immediately expanded and turned into a body. This body was tall and sturdy. It was wearing a golden armor. Its figure, appearance, and eyes were exactly the same as Murong Zheng's. This was the magic of the Xuanye golden embryo. Murong Zheng refined it with his soul for a long time and it could turn into Murong Zheng's appearance. If the black-robed man obtained this item and refined it with his soul for a long time, the Xuanye golden embryo's body would be no different from his. Of course, this doppelganger technique was just a puppet. It did not have a life or soul. Therefore, it only had Murong Zheng's appearance, but it did not have Murong Zheng's temperament and soul aura. Murong Zheng controlled the white light of his soul. It flew out from the top of his head and entered the Xuanye golden embryo. The Xuanye golden embryo suddenly came to life. Its facial expression changed slightly. Its eyes became lively and its body emitted the domineering aura of a soul-tempering realm expert. Murong Zheng twisted his neck and moved his arms and legs. Soon, he got used to the doppelganger technique. Ji Tianxing stored half of his body into his interspatial ring and smiled at the black-robed man. Junior brother Ji, do you still think that we can't kill Ji Tianxing? The black-robed man looked at him with a complicated expression. Looking at his golden armor and his majestic appearance, he said enviously, Senior brother Murong, master really, favors you a lot. This external avatar was refined from star true gold and had the ability to transform into a myriad of things. Its defensive power was also unparalleled. With this magic treasure in hand, even if your physical body is destroyed, your divine soul can immediately transfer into your external incarnation and immediately recover your combat strength. This is simply too heaven-defying. Ha ha ha. That's why I've already said that Ji Tianxing will definitely die tonight. There's no way he'll be able to escape. Murong Zheng sneered proudly. He held the ice-blue treasure sword in his hand and stared coldly into the distant night sky. At the same time, Ji Tianxing had already rescued the Jinshan king. He used the ultimate skill of the Wood Emperor umbrella to inject green wood genuine qi and vitality into the Jinshan king. The wounds all over the Jinshan king's body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye, and no more blood flowed out. Ji Tianxing gave him 2 healing elixirs and circulated his energy to help him suppress his injuries. The Jinshan king gradually regained consciousness and said in a weak voice, Young Master Ji, I've disappointed you. I'm too useless. Not only did I not help you, I even dragged you down. Ji Tianxing shook his head and said solemnly, Jinshan king, there's no need to be so polite between us. You don't have to blame yourself either. You've already done enough. You can only blame your opponents for being too strong and too despicable. Don't worry and return to the peaceful Earth City to recuperate. I'll take care of those 2 bastards and avenge you. The Jinshan king nodded and said with concern, Young Master Ji, you must be careful. Take care. Ji Tianxing did not say anything else. He opened the sword world and sent the Jinshan king back to the peaceful Earth City. Then, he carried the broken sword burial of heaven and flew toward Murong Zheng and the black-robed man. Swoosh! He flew across the night sky expressionlessly, emitting a cold killing intent. In the blink of an eye, he arrived above a mountain peak. He stood in the night sky 5 kilometers away from Murong Zheng, coldly looking at him and the black-robed man. Seeing Murong Zheng's body return to its original state and wearing a layer of golden armor, he immediately trembled and frowned in confusion. Murong Zheng, that old bastard, his body was clearly destroyed by my sword and only half of his body was left. How did he recover in the blink of an eye? This is impossible. What kind of secret technique in this world can regenerate a person's body in the blink of an eye? Ji Tianxing was shocked and could not believe it. At this moment, the burial of heaven's vigorous voice rang in his mind, reminding him, Tianxing, there is indeed a secret technique in this world that can quickly regenerate a person's body, but that's a Saint Realm secret technique. It's impossible for it to appear on this continent. It's impossible for Murong Zheng to master this kind of Saint Realm secret technique. The person you saw was not his original body, but a puppet. The burial of heaven was knowledgeable and knowledgeable. Of course, he could see Murong Zheng's abnormality at a glance. Ji Tianxing stared at Murong Zheng and observed him for a moment. He thought to himself doubtfully, buried heaven, what kind of puppet could be so lifelike and even possess Murong Zheng's god's soul aura? The burial of heaven was silent for a moment, as if it was investigating Murong Zheng's situation. After a moment, it explained, Murong Zheng's body is very similar to a puppet's, but it's also not. That's an external incarnation, a very rare clone technique. External clone? Cloning technique? Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and revealed a look of interest. The burial of heaven said in a deep voice, now is not the time to discuss this. When you are strong enough, I will naturally teach you the cloning technique. All right. Ji Tianxing nodded and said with a murderous aura, we'll talk about this later. Right now, I need to kill those two bastards. As he said that, he held the broken sword, the burial of heaven, and rushed toward Murong Zheng at the speed of light. Murong, old man, even if you change into a dog's skin, I will still kill you. Heaven-splitting sword. Die. Amidst his angry roar, Ji Tianxing held the broken sword with both hands and slashed with all his strength. 1,000 feet long blazing white sword light, carrying the power and momentum of splitting heaven and earth, fell from the sky and slashed toward Murong Zheng. This sword was the combination of essence, energy, and spirit, heaven, man, and sword. This was the sword that Ji Tianxing poured his magic power, spirit, and soul into. It was the strongest and most powerful sword. Just like his determination and attitude in martial arts, he pressed forward courageously and cut through all obstacles. No matter how difficult or dangerous it was, he would slash through with one sword. The sword light that could split heaven and earth had locked onto Murong Zheng's soul aura, leaving him with nowhere to hide. Murong Zheng's expression changed and his eyes became serious. He could only use a secret technique to remove the domain that covered 100 miles and call back the Four Spirits' holy flag. Swoosh 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 swoosh. Chapter 12:19. Ji Tianxing was very clear that the Four Spirit Saint flag was a soul-level high-level magic treasure. Its defense was very strong. His one sword splitting the heavens' consummate skill was naturally incomparably valiant and invincible. But he could not guarantee that after this sword was blocked by the Four Spirit Saint flag, it could still kill Murong Zheng. That was not realistic. The biggest possibility was that the Four Spirit Saint flag would be knocked away or injured while Murong Zheng would be safe and sound. At most, he would only be lightly injured. When this thought flashed through Ji Tianxing's mind, he did not hesitate to change his target and fiercely slashed at the black-robed man. Murong Zheng was stronger and with the Four Spirit Saint flag protecting him, it would not be easy to kill him. But the black-robed man was weaker. Ji Tianxing decided to kill him first and then deal with Murong Zheng. The black-robed man stood not far from Murong Zheng. He held a treasured sword in his hand and was supporting Murong Zheng. He originally thought that while Ji Tianxing and Murong Zheng were fighting, he would help from the side and use a secret assassination technique. After all, he came from the Heaven Ascension sect and was best at hiding and assassination techniques. But he never thought that Ji Tianxing's sword, just as it was about to hit Murong Zheng, would suddenly slash at him. At that moment, his expression changed greatly. His eyes were filled with fear and he cursed in his heart, "What the f***ck? I have no enmity with you. You don't want to kill Murong Zheng, but you want to kill me first." The black-robed man was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. He could only run for his life without any strength to resist. His name was Ji Wu Kuo. It was a name given to him by his master. But now, there was nothing he could do. Bang! With a deafening sound, the heaven-splitting sword fiercely slashed at the panicked Ji Wu Kuo. Violent waves of air formed a white shockwave that spread out in all directions. In an instant, it covered a radius of 50 miles. Murong Zheng, who was the closest, was sent flying 10 miles away on the spot. Half the sky was lit up by the white light. The night was as bright as day. The power of this sword was earth-shattering. It was incomparably terrifying. Ji Wuzuo's figure was engulfed by the white light. He didn't even have the chance to scream before he melted like snow. His body disintegrated. The armor he wore, as well as the soul weapon in his hand, were all shattered by the sword. After his physical body was crushed into powder, His divine soul was also injured by the power of the giant sword, causing cracks to appear on it. A moment later, when the white light that blotted out the sky dissipated and the night sky returned to darkness, the remaining power of the sword dissipated. A white light flew into the night sky with a swoosh sound, and fled into the distance. That was Ji Wuzuo's divine soul. He wasn't as lucky as Murong Zheng to have the Xuanye golden embryo as an avatar. His physical body was destroyed, and his soul had nowhere to go, so he could only flee in panic. At this moment, he couldn't care less about the friendship between fellow disciples. He didn't even dare to think about killing Ji Tianxing to avenge Murong Lingfeng. He only wanted to escape and leave this place as quickly as possible. Preserving his life was more important. However, Ji Tianxing wanted to take advantage of his victory to pursue and attack. He tore through the night sky as fast as an aurora, brandishing his sword and chasing after him. Trying to escape. "Prepare to die," he shouted coldly and swung his broken sword, sending out a shocking sword light towards Ji Wuzuo's divine soul. However, Murong Zheng had already rushed over and controlled the 4 sacred flags to block in front of him. Heaven and Earth Dharma image, 4 spirits suppressing the heavens. Murong Zheng shouted angrily and controlled the 4 sacred flags to fly and revolve, forming a huge light screen in the night sky, blocking Ji Tianxing like a barrier. Peng! The blazing white sword light slashed onto the 5-colored barrier and exploded with a loud sound, but it immediately shattered. That 5-colored barrier also trembled uncontrollably and cracks appeared on it, but it quickly dissipated. Ji Tianxing's charge was blocked and he was immediately held back by Murong Zheng. It was impossible for him to chase after Ji Wuzuo. Ji Wuzuo's divine soul escaped 10 miles away, but he didn't forget to send a message to Murong Zheng with his divine soul. "Senior Murong, this bastard is very strong. I will leave first. Don't force yourself. If you can't defeat him, you must retreat. I will return to Zuntian sect now and ask for reinforcements to help you." After saying that, Ji Wuzuo didn't wait for Murong Zheng's reply and flew away hurriedly. After a few breaths, the white light of his divine soul disappeared into the horizon and was swallowed by the dark night sky. In the vast mountains and forests, only Ji Tianxing and Murong Zheng were left. They were still entangled with each other. Both of them used their full strength and only wanted to kill each other as soon as possible. Sword light and sword shadows intersected and clashed in the night sky, causing loud explosions. As Murong Zheng fought with Ji Tianxing, he pondered, Ji Wuzuo is still as cowardly as before. He has no backbone. This brat only knows how to launch sneak attacks from the dark and doesn't have the courage to fight head-on. He also doesn't have the responsibility and dignity of an expert. Because of this, Master doesn't value him and passed the Xuanye golden embryo to me. Wait for him to return to Zuntian sect to ask for reinforcements. In less than 2 hours, I will definitely be able to cut off Ji Tianxing's head with my sword. At the same time, Ji Tianxing frowned and thought to himself with a gloomy face, Murong Zheng's 4-spirit saint flag is indeed worthy of being a family heirloom. Its defense is so strong. Unless I fight in close combat, I can only use my broken sword to break through the defense of the 4-spirit saint flag. Otherwise, it is almost impossible for me to break through the defense of the 4-spirit saint flag with my secret martial art. Murong Zheng also knows this, so he has always been on guard against me. He doesn't want to fight me in close combat. No, I have to create an opportunity. Ji Tianxing made up his mind and purposely revealed an opening to attract Murong Zheng's attack. While Murong Zheng was attacking fiercely, he quickly used the sword spirit battle technique and used his godlike body movement to dodge the sword light in the sky and rushed in front of Murong Zheng. "Old man, die!" Ji Tianxing suddenly appeared 1,000 meters behind Murong Zheng. With a shout, he swung his sword fiercely. "Draw your sword." The broken sword slashed out a ray of blazing white sword light and instantly cut through the night sky and hit Murong Zheng. Murong Zheng did not have time to dodge and was sent flying by this sword. A wound that was more than a foot long and 2 inches deep immediately appeared on his left shoulder. This sword almost cut off his entire left arm. However, there was no blood flowing out from the wound and no bones could be seen. After Murong Zheng flew 1,000 meters away, His whole body flashed with a golden light and he immediately used his magic power to heal the wound on his left shoulder. In a blink of an eye, the wound was healed. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing frowned and his expression was a little ugly. Murongzheng was full of pride and he sneered, "Hey, little bastard, are you stunned? You haven't seen such a miraculous self-healing ability, right? As the family head of an ancient family, the resources and treasures that I have is something that you can't even imagine. You can't beat me, accept your fate and accept your death." Ji Tianqing stared at him coldly and his lips curled into a cold smile. He said in a playful tone, "Isn't it just a puppet incarnation? What's so great about it? Do you really think that I can't kill you? Then open your dog eyes wide and look carefully." As he said that, he raised his heavy left arm and the flame mark on the back of his hand lit up with a sacred golden light. Chapter 12:20. Following Ji Tianqing's low growl, a dazzling golden flame gushed out of his palm. Swoosh! The dazzling holy flame instantly formed a golden spear that was 10 meters long and as thick as a man's arm. This spear was simple and exquisite in design. It exuded a violent aura that could destroy heaven and earth, as if it was a divine weapon held by a deity from the 9 heavens. Swish! In just 1/3 of an instant, the god-slaying spear turned into a golden ray of light. It pierced through the sky and arrived in front of Murongzheng. Murongzheng's divine soul was locked onto by the god-slaying spear. He had nowhere to run. No matter where he ran to, the god-slaying spear would hit him. Therefore, he chose to face it head-on. He manipulated the 4 sacred flags to form a defensive array to protect himself. Boom! When the 4 spirit saint flag shone with a dazzling brilliance and condensed into a colorful shield, the god-slaying spear struck the shield with a loud bang. At that moment, the heaven and earth within a radius of 15 kilometers became still. The air was also squeezed. The space seemed to be frozen. Even time stopped flowing. Murongzheng watched helplessly as a huge hole appeared in the dazzling shield, which had an unparalleled defensive power. Dense cracks spread out around the gap, and then the entire shield exploded with a bang, exploding into fragments all over the sky. The 4 sacred flags were blown away and fell in 4 different directions. The lights flashed wildly for a while and then dimmed. Almost at the same time, the god-slaying spear's power did not decrease and hit him. There was another loud bang. Murongzheng was drowned in the holy golden light. He did not even have time to scream before his chest was pierced by the god-slaying spear. His body exploded into millions of golden pieces and splashed in all directions. His external incarnation was a soul-level upper-grade Dharma treasure that was made from the extremely precious stellar true gold. However, this god-slaying spear was released by Ji Tianqing with all his strength. It consumed 30% of the power of the divine flames. Its power was enough to destroy heaven and earth. The deafening sound continued to reverberate in the sky. The golden pieces that were flying in the sky were like golden snowflakes falling in the night sky. It was very dazzling. Murongzheng's external incarnation was destroyed on the spot. His divine soul was also blown away. It fell into the distance in a daze. Even though he was lucky enough to not die, cracks had appeared on his soul and he had suffered severe injuries. If he could escape, he would have to recuperate in seclusion for more than 10 years to recover from the injury to his divine soul. Without a doubt, he had been utterly defeated, utterly defeated. Swoosh! At this moment, Ji Tianqing's figure flashed and he chased after Murongzheng with the broken sword in his hand. He quickly approached Murongzheng's divine soul. He wanted to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. He wanted to take this opportunity to destroy Murongzheng's divine soul and kill him completely. "Old man, it's time for you to die. Die." Ji Tianqing caught up with Murongzheng at the speed of light. He brandished his broken sword and slashed out a blazing white sword light, ruthlessly slashing towards Murongzheng's divine soul. Murongzheng's soul was injured, and his consciousness was blurry. He was unable to dodge or resist. Murong. At this moment, he was in utter despair. He could not see any hope of survival at all. It was as if he could foresee the arrival of death. But right at that moment, a miracle happened. Swoosh! A 10-jong long, dazzling divine golden light suddenly lit up in the night sky not far away, and rapidly shot towards them. Just as the white sword was about to hit Murong Zheng's divine soul, the divine golden light finally arrived and blocked the white sword by a hair's breadth. Bam! There was a loud bang. The white sword and the divine golden light collided, creating a violent shockwave. The blazing white sword radiance exploded on the spot, exploding into countless fragments that scattered across the sky. Ji Tianxing had almost killed Murong Zheng, but the sudden arrival of the divine golden light had allowed Murong Zheng to escape the calamity and save his life. Murong Zheng's divine soul was blown away and landed in the night sky thousands of meters away. He stopped in shock. He looked at the scene in shock and stared at the divine golden light. He wanted to know who had saved him. Ji Tianxing also stopped attacking. He looked at the divine golden light with a cold expression. The divine golden light quickly disappeared and revealed a sage-like old man. He stood in front of Ji Tianxing. The old man was tall and thin. He wore a loose white robe. His beard and hair were snow-white. He held a golden horsetail whisk in his hand. He stood in the air. His face was majestic and his eyes were like lightning. He exuded an aura that could suppress the world. Ji Tianxing and Murong Zheng were stunned when they saw the white-robed old man's face. They could not believe it. Imperial tutor? How did he get here? It's the Imperial tutor. Why did he save me? There was no doubt that the sage-like white-robed old man was the Imperial tutor. The Imperial tutor looked at Ji Tianxing calmly. He waved the horsetail whisk in his hand and bowed. Tianxing, how have you been? Ji Tianxing immediately calmed down. He looked at the Imperial tutor indifferently and bowed. Tianxing greets your majesty, Imperial tutor. May I know why your majesty, Imperial tutor has come here and why you want to save Murong Zheng? His heart was filled with unwillingness. He was dissatisfied with the Imperial tutor's actions, so he asked directly. What he asked was exactly what Murong Zheng wanted to know. Murong Zheng was not in a hurry to escape. He stopped 1,000 meters away in the night sky and stared at the Imperial tutor. He wanted to see how he would answer. The Imperial tutor nodded at Ji Tianxing and explained calmly, Tianxing, I'm here on the Emperor's orders. This old man knows that your killing intent has been aroused and you have vowed to kill Murong Zheng on the spot, but please calm down and listen to this old man's explanation. Ji Tianxing knew that since the Imperial tutor had appeared here, he must have something to do with the Imperial court and the Emperor. Since the Imperial tutor had stopped him, it was impossible for him to kill Murong Zheng. Helpless, he could only suppress his killing intent and listen to the Imperial tutor's explanation with an expressionless face. The Imperial tutor hugged the horsetail whisk and said calmly, more than a year ago, Murong Lingfeng led a group of strong cultivators to attack you, but you killed them instead. From then on, I knew that you had a blood feud with the Murong family. It was almost impossible to resolve. I know Murong Zheng's nature very well. This person is very shrewd. On the surface, he seems to be enduring, but because of the Imperial court's prestige, he is enduring the humiliation. But in reality, he will not let it go. He will definitely wait for an opportunity to take revenge for Murong Lingfeng. But you and the Murong family are the mainstays of my family. You are the pillars of the Imperial court. The Emperor does not want to see you kill each other. For the past year, Murong Zheng has been secretly plotting against you. I have also sent spies from the Imperial court to keep an eye on Murong Zheng's movements. Chapter 1221. After hearing the Imperial tutor's explanation, Ji Tianxing and Murong Zheng came to a sudden realization. No wonder the Imperial tutor had appeared at this time and saved Murong Zheng at this critical juncture. As it turned out, the Imperial tutor had already predicted that this day would come more than a year ago. Over the past year, the Imperial tutor had been paying attention to Murong Zheng's movements. Ji Tianxing frowned and said in a cold voice, Imperial tutor, since you've been monitoring Murong Zheng, you should know that he was the one who deliberately tried to kill me tonight. I didn't intend to take revenge on the Murong family, you know this very well. However, Murong Zheng was looking for death, so it was only right and proper for me to kill him. Why did you save him? Actually, there were some things that he understood. He also knew that tonight's matter was a foregone conclusion. He definitely wouldn't be able to kill Murong Zheng. However, He couldn't take this lying down. He had to find the imperial tutor and ask for an explanation. The imperial tutor sighed and revealed a knowing smile. He nodded and said, "That's right. This old man is very clear about the cause of this matter. Tonight, it was Murong Zheng who deliberately tried to kill you to take revenge. Even if you killed him, he deserved it. However, this old man just said that nothing can happen to you and the Murong family. This is the Emperor's wish. Now that the demon race is wreaking havoc in the world, our race will once again face a reign of terror. The Emperor must protect the peace of the human race and use all his strength to resist the demon race. He doesn't want to see the internal power of our race break apart. Tianxing, you've always been a man of great righteousness. You're also the prodigy that the Emperor relies on the most. This old man believes that you also don't want to see the demon race wantonly slaughter our people and our race's powerhouses wither away. No one can protect the common people, right?" Hearing this, Ji Tianxing fell silent. The imperial tutor and the Emperor both know my nature very well. They used the demon race's rule as an excuse and used the common people as an excuse to make me spare Murong Zheng. At this moment, the imperial tutor continued, "Tianxing, this old man announces on behalf of the Emperor that this matter ends here. Back then, you killed Murong Lingfeng. Now, you are sparing Murong Zheng's life. A life for a life, the debt between the two of you is cleared. The grudge between you and the Murong family will also end here. From now on, both sides are not allowed to seek revenge. Otherwise, the imperial court will intervene and severely punish the side that seeks revenge." When Ji Tianxing heard this, he felt a little conflicted. He sneered, "Imperial tutor, do you think that's possible? The enmity between me and the Murong family is already deep. Do you think you can resolve it with just a few words from you?" The imperial tutor looked at him expressionlessly and said in a solemn tone, "This is not what I said, but what the Emperor said. No matter how deep the blood feud is between you and the Murong family, you must obey the imperial court's orders. Even if it is impossible, as long as the Emperor gives the order, it will become possible, and we must obey the order." The imperial tutor's tone was low and dignified, containing an unquestionable domineering aura. Ji Tianxing fell silent again, unable to refute. After all, the human race in the world was under the jurisdiction of the imperial court. This was the rule and principle since ancient times. Unless he betrayed the human race, or if his strength far surpassed the imperial court, he had the right to go against the imperial court's orders and not be bound by the imperial court. Just like Kenshin 1,000 years ago, not only was he not bound by the imperial court, but the imperial court even asked him for help. When he thought of this, Ji Tianxing's heart became more and more eager to reach Kenshin's level as soon as possible and restore Kenshin's supreme glory. He was not a descendant of the imperial court, nor was he the emperor who controlled the human race. He could not abandon his personal grudges and protect the peace of the world. He yearned to become a peerless expert like Kenshin, unrestrained, coming and going like the wind, doing things according to his nature and preferences. That was the peerless expert who walked the world with his sword, the carefree god of the sword. At this time, the imperial tutor turned to look at Murong Zheng, who was not far away, and asked in a deep voice, "Murong Zheng, you heard this old man's words clearly. Do you have any objections?" Murong Zheng had just escaped a disaster and was saved by the imperial tutor, so of course he had no objections. He quickly sent a spiritual message and said in a serious tone, "Your Majesty Imperial Tutor, please tell His Majesty the Emperor that this subject will definitely obey His Majesty's orders and will not go against them. In addition, my Murong family will always be loyal to the imperial court and serve the human race." The imperial tutor's lips curved into a playful smile, and said in a dignified tone, "Very good. Murong Zheng, you are indeed a person who understands the big picture. I hope you will always remember what you said tonight. Since your Murong family is loyal to the imperial court and serves the human race, this old man will now announce the Emperor's second order. The Emperor's order is that within half a year, Murong Zheng will personally lead 100,000 elite soldiers of the Murong family to the battlefield in the north to resist the invasion of the demon army. As long as the chaos of the demon race is not quelled, Murong Zheng and the soldiers of the Murong family will not be able to return to the central province." After announcing the Emperor's order, The imperial tutor calmly added, "Murong Zheng, your Murong family has a foothold in the central province, enjoyed 1,000 years of peace, and prospered. Now, the demon race is bringing disaster to the human race. It is time for the Murong family to step forward and pledge your loyalty to the imperial court, and shelter the human race from the wind and rain." When Murong Zheng heard this, his soul was greatly shaken, and his mood was incomparably complicated. His words of righteousness were deliberately said for the imperial tutor to hear. Those words sounded dignified, expressing the Murong family's loyalty, but he was actually unwilling to fulfill it. But now, the emperor had ordered him to lead 100,000 elite soldiers of the Murong family to the battlefield to resist the demon army. He had just boasted of his loyalty, so he couldn't immediately go back on his words and disobey the emperor's order, right? Wouldn't that be slapping his own face? Moreover, did the Murong family have the right to disobey the emperor's order? Absolutely not. Damn it. The imperial tutor and the emperor, these two old fellows, have long seen through my nature and guessed how I would answer, so they set a trap for me in advance. Murong Zheng's heart was filled with hatred, and he was so regretful that he wanted to vomit blood. Unfortunately, he didn't have a physical body, so he couldn't vomit blood even if he wanted to. After hesitating for a moment, he said with some difficulty, "Your Highness the imperial tutor, this subject will naturally obey the emperor's order, and will not dare to neglect it. But my Murong family's power is meager, and we only have a few thousand people. Where would we get 100,000 elite soldiers?" Hearing this, the imperial tutor immediately revealed a cold smile, and said in an indifferent tone, "Murong Zheng, this old man and the emperor are well aware of the Murong family's power. Don't play around with those little ideas, it's just making people laugh. You only have half a year to heal your injuries, gather all the forces under your command, and gather 100,000 elite soldiers. Don't waste your breath with this old man here, quickly go back and heal your injuries, and prepare for the battle." Murong Zheng was suddenly at a loss for words. He was full of shame from the imperial tutor's rebuke, and was speechless. Of course, the Murong family could gather 100,000 elite soldiers. But that was gathering all the forces under the Murong family's command, and gathering 80% of their elite warriors. Half a year later, he would bring 100,000 elite soldiers to the battlefield in the northern border, which was equivalent to bringing 80% of the Murong family's forces with him. Once 100,000 elite soldiers died on the battlefield, the Murong family would only exist in name. Chapter 1222. Murong Zheng was filled with grievances and depression as he fled with his tail between his legs. He had planned this for more than a year. He thought that tonight's operation would go smoothly and he would definitely be able to kill Ji Tianxing. But the final result was like this. Not only did he fail to kill Ji Tianxing, his body was also heavily injured by Ji Tianxing. His external incarnation was destroyed and his soul was injured. For the next 10 years, he was like a cripple. He had to go into seclusion to heal his injuries. What angered him the most was that half a year later, he had to take away 80% of the Murong family's elite warriors to fight against the demons at the border. The battlefield was an abyss and a bottomless pit that crazily devoured lives. Not to mention 100,000 elite warriors, even an army of 1,000,000 would gradually be eaten away and eventually be exhausted. If the Murong family lost 80% of their elite warriors, they would only be left with an empty shell. They would only exist in name. In this way, he would be the biggest loser. Not only would he lose himself, but he would also destroy the Murong family. The more Murong Zheng thought about it, the angrier he became. He secretly cursed the emperor for being a sly old fox, despicable and shameless. Ji Tianxing and the imperial tutor stood in the dark night sky and watched as Murong Zheng's soul disappeared into the darkness. The two of them were 100 meters away from each other as they pondered in silence. Ji Tianxing was forced by the imperial court's prestige and had no choice but to accept this reality and obey the emperor's orders. He could understand the emperor's thoughts and intentions. He also guessed that Murong Zheng and the Murong family would not have a good ending. With this thought, he felt much better and gradually let go of his worries. After a while, he saw that the imperial tutor was still not leaving. He could not help but ask, "Imperial tutor, this matter is over. Do you have any other matters?" The imperial tutor stepped on the air and stopped 5 steps away from him. He looked at him with a deep gaze and said, "Of course I have other matters. This old man came not only to resolve the grudge between you and the Murong family, but also to say something to you face to face." Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and revealed a playful smile. "What you want to say? Are you representing the emperor or yourself?" The imperial tutor smiled and shook his head. "Of course it's what I want to say. It has nothing to do with the emperor. Tianxing, you seem to have some complaints about the emperor's arrangement." Ji Tianxing looked at him expressionlessly. He did not answer, but he did not deny it either. This was because he knew that the imperial tutor was an immortal-like figure. Not only was he good at deducing the heavenly cycle, but he was also good at reading people's minds. Trying to deceive the imperial tutor's fiery golden eyes was harder than ascending to heaven. When the imperial tutor saw that he was silent, he smiled again and said in an indifferent tone, "You are young and full of vigor. Although you have great talent, your knowledge and experience are shallow. Therefore, it is normal for you to be unable to understand the emperor's actions. Moreover, your position and position are different from the imperial emperor's. Naturally, you can't understand the imperial emperor's intentions." Ji Tianxing gave him a deep look, then said with an indifferent tone, "That's right, Your Majesty is the monarch of the humankind. Of course, your thoughts are based on maintaining the stability of the humankind. In order to protect the people of the humankind, Your Majesty can sacrifice anyone and any force. This is his duty. However, I am just a martial artist in the secular world. I have 7 emotions and 6 desires, gratitude and hatred. Naturally, I want to be unrestrained and take revenge as I please. As for Your Majesty's way of handling this matter, I can understand it as making the best use of everything, right?" "Making the best use of everything," the imperial tutor murmured, trying to figure out the meaning of these words. After a while, he smiled and nodded, "That's right. Tianxing, your words are very accurate. It seems that you already understand Your Majesty's position and intentions. As one of the 3 great thousand ancient aristocratic families, the Murong family had a foothold in the central state. Under the protection of the imperial court, they had enjoyed 1,000 years of peace and prosperity. As the saying goes, the greater the power, the greater the responsibility. For the past 1,000 years, the Murong family had enjoyed a lot of glory and wealth. Now, they had to pay the same price. With the arrival of chaos, the demon emperor had returned to the throne. The demon race had brought chaos to the world. The people of the continent were about to be plunged into misery and suffering. However, the Murong family did not want to serve the imperial court or protect the people of the world. They only wanted to take revenge. How could the imperial court tolerate such selfish actions? Instead of letting the Murong family stay in the central state and enjoy peace, fighting openly and secretly with you and Cloud Spirit Palace, exhausting the power of my family and causing the human race to not be peaceful. It would be better to let all the elites of the Murong family go to the battlefield to serve the imperial court and sacrifice their lives to protect the people. This is what you meant by making the best use of everything. Even if all the elites of the Murong family die on the battlefield, we will not let down the protection and support of the imperial court for the past 1,000 years. Hearing the imperial tutor's words, Ji Tianxing had an indescribable complicated feeling in his heart. He looked up at the dark night sky and sighed in his heart, "Fortunately, I was not born in the imperial family. All day long, they play tricks and scheme. It's really depressing. I only hope that I can reach the peak of martial arts in this life, like Kenshin who became a god in the way of the sword. Using the sword to travel the world, blood staining the blue sky, killing all the injustices, my heroism will shake the ages." The imperial tutor saw that Ji Tianxing was silent, so he said calmly, "Tianxing, whether you agree or not, whether you understand or not, the imperial tutor's order cannot be changed. You can only follow it. This old man will not mention this matter again. In the future, you must not seek revenge on the Murong family." Ji Tianxing thought for a moment and nodded, "If the Murong family does not take the initiative to provoke me, naturally, there will be peace. If they come to deal with me again, at that time, I will definitely kill them all. At that time, I hope the imperial court will not stop me again." The imperial tutor nodded slightly and said, "Of course. This matter ended and the two of them did not mention it again. Then, the imperial tutor said in a serious tone, "Tianqing, other than this matter, this old man also wants to tell you something. You must be mentally prepared." Tianqing vaguely guessed something and asked with a frown, could it be that the imperial tutor not only sent the Murong family to the battlefield, but also sent an order to the Cloud Soul Palace? The imperial tutor nodded and said, "That's right. There are only 2 of the 3 ancient families left. The Murong family wants to mobilize 80% of their elites to the border to participate in the war. Naturally, the Cloud Soul Palace cannot avoid it. But don't worry, the imperial tutor's order to the Cloud Soul Palace is for Yun Zhongqi to lead 50,000 elite soldiers to the border to fight against the demons. The Cloud Soul Palace is now the most powerful family, so it is not difficult to mobilize 50,000 elite soldiers. It is only equivalent to 40% of the Cloud Soul Palace's elite warriors." Tianqing frowned even more and asked doubtfully, "Imperial tutor, is the situation at the northern border really so dangerous that the imperial tutor has to make such an arrangement?" "You guessed right. The current situation has indeed reached a critical juncture." The imperial tutor nodded and admitted it. He said with a serious expression, "For the past half a year, you have not been in the central province, so you do not know the situation at the northern border. After the bloodline shackles of the demons were removed, they developed extremely quickly. There were many geniuses and strong soul refinement cultivators. In the past, you killed 3 of the 6 great demon commanders, so there are only 3 left. But now, the number of demon commanders under the demon emperor has reached as many as 8. Even the ghost emperor, who established his own family 600 years ago, for some reason, surrendered to the ancient demon emperor." Chapter 12:23. The imperial tutor's words made Tianqing frown deeply, and his expression became very serious. The demon race is completely unified, and there are 8 demon commanders. Even the ghost emperor has returned to the demon emperor's side. He looked at the imperial tutor in disbelief and asked in a low voice. The imperial tutor nodded and said with a serious expression, "In the past year, the demon army has been divided into 3 armies. They attacked our race, the demon race, and the aquatic race respectively. The demon army this time is much stronger than 1,000 years ago. They dare to fight on 3 fronts at the same time. This shows the ancient demon emperor's ambition. The most frightening thing was that 2 months ago, some puppet-like great demons had appeared in the demon army. I personally investigated and found out that they are the demon blood gods that the demon emperor used an ancient secret technique to refine." "Demon blood gods." Tianqing's pupils constricted, and he said with a serious expression, "Back then, Yun Yarrow was captured by the demon emperor in the northern desert and refined into a demon blood god. A new demon soul was born in her body and destroyed her own consciousness. She became very powerful." The imperial tutor nodded and said, "That's right. The ancient demon emperor successfully mastered this ancient secret technique and refined at least a few dozen demon blood god. Each demon blood god carries a huge power of calamities and plagues. Under the escort of elite demon kings, they sneak into the camps and cities of our race. In the past 2 months, all kinds of calamities and plagues have been breaking out in the major cities and camps of the northern border. There are fire from the sky, blood from the ground, poisonous plagues, bone-corroding black winds, soul-sucking mental demons, and so on. There are all kinds of calamities and plagues. A few days ago, I received the battle report from the front line and did a rough calculation. In the past 2 months, the casualties on the northern border battlefield are as high as 600,000 people. More than a dozen cities have suffered calamities and plagues, and the casualties are more than 8 million. It's close to 10 million. It's not just our race. The demon race and aquatic race's battlefields are also in the same situation. Calamities and corpse puppets are everywhere." Tianqing's expression changed immediately, and he asked in a serious tone, "The situation is so tragic. So many calamities and tribulations, isn't this the legendary 3 calamities and 9 tribulations?" The imperial tutor looked at him in surprise and asked, "Tianqing, you actually know about the legend of the 3 disasters and 9 tribulations?" Tianqing was stunned for a moment before he hurriedly explained, "Back then, when Yun Yarrow was captured by the Devil Emperor to the northern desert, I snuck into the devil race alone in order to rescue her. After disguising myself, I lived in the devil race for a few months. It was during that time that I learned about the legend of the ancestral devil god. Legend has it that the ancestral demon god was known as the Grim Reaper and controlled the 3 calamities and 9 tribulations. Wherever he went, calamities would follow. Even the gods were unable to contend against him. The imperial tutor nodded solemnly and said, "That's right. Recently, the various disasters that have appeared on the battlefields at the borders of various races are very similar to the legendary 3 calamities and 9 tribulations. I also suspect that the calamities and plagues carried by the blood god scions are related to the ancestral fiend god's power. However, the ancestral fiend god is a fiend god from ancient times and has already fallen in the Great War of the Gods. It is impossible for him to have survived until now. Otherwise, the devil race would have already dominated the continent. I have been investigating this matter recently and have a headache over it. For the time being, I do not have a good plan to deal with it. I can only send people to investigate and capture those evil blood god scions. Tianxing, the current situation of the 3 races is very critical. Therefore, the Emperor does not wish for any internal conflicts to arise among our races. The devil race is the common enemy of our 3 races. In this chaotic world, everyone should unite and deal with the devil race with all their strength. Only then will we have a chance of survival." Ji Tianxing was silent and did not say anything. However, a storm was raging in his heart. He recalled what Yun Yarrow had said about the blood river and the ancestral fiend god statue. At that time, he had told this secret to the palace master, hoping to attract the palace master's attention. However, the palace master had told him that even if the ancestral fiend god wanted to awaken and be reborn, it would still take 1,000 years. He had listened to the palace master's words and put this matter aside for the time being. However, he did not expect the situation to change so drastically in just a few months. The ancient fiend emperor had refined many more scions of the blood god, and each of them carried calamities and plagues. He could not help but suspect that the ancestral fiend god's power was rapidly recovering. It was even possible that he was about to be reborn. Once the ancestral fiend god was reborn, it would not be just a few million people who would die. The entire Tianxian continent's living beings and billions of people would turn into ashes under the 3 calamities and 9 tribulations. At this thought, Ji Tianxing's heart was filled with worry and anxiety. He hesitated for a moment and looked at the imperial tutor with a solemn expression. He said, "Imperial tutor, since you have told me such important news, I naturally understand the emperor's intentions. However, I have an even more urgent news to tell you. Please pass it on to the emperor when you return." Back then, Yun Yarrow had been captured and brought to the heavenly devil palace in the northern desert. She had stayed in the devil race's sacred mountain for a few months. During that period, she would hear strange sounds coming from the river of blood every month, and a mysterious black shadow would appear. Later on, she discovered by chance that the ancient fiend emperor was secretly worshipping a strange statue. That was the ancestral fiend god's portrait. Yun Yarrow and I have analyzed it in detail. We suspect that the ancestral fiend god may not have truly fallen, and there is still a trace of his divine soul or divine power remaining. Now that tens of thousands of years have passed, the ancient fiend emperor is likely to revive the ancestral fiend god and let the devil race take over the world and dominate the continent. Upon hearing this news, the imperial tutor's expression changed drastically. His deep eyes shone with a bright light. There's such a thing. The ancestral fiend god that disappeared during the Great War of the Gods is about to be reborn? It's no wonder that in the past year, I have been observing the stars and deducing the future of the universe. I have discovered that the blood qi in the northern desert is so dense that it seems to be about to swallow the world. In his agitation, he grabbed Ji Tianxing's shoulders with both hands and asked in a low voice, "Tianxing, why didn't you tell me this earlier? It's such an important piece of news that concerns the lives of the world." Ji Tianxing said in a low voice, "This is just my and Yun Yarrow's guess. There's no basis for it. The great war between the ancestral fiend god and the gods is just a legend. Who would believe me if I told them? I did tell the mansion master about this, but he told me not to worry. Even if the ancestral fiend god has a trace of divine power remaining in the world, it will take thousands of years for him to be reborn. Sigh. Upon hearing this, the imperial tutor could only sigh helplessly. He placed his hands behind his back and looked up at the vast night sky. He sighed with a complicated tone. The mansion master is the most powerful person in the continent now, and he is also the most mysterious. He comes and goes without saying, as if he is carrying some secrets and conspiracies. Even I have only seen him a few times, let alone understand him. Tianxing, although you are the prince of the mansion master, you are also the most talented person of the human race and the domain master that the emperor values the most. I have to remind you that the mansion master is extremely powerful, and he is definitely not a kind person. Chapter 1224. The Lord of the Imperial Residence was the #1 expert on the continent. His status was lofty, almost like a god. Ji Tianxing didn't understand him, nor did he have the right to criticize him. But the imperial tutor's status was rather special, so he had the right to say a few words. Ji Tianxing only listened quietly, not making any comments. He silently nodded. The imperial tutor also knew that his relationship with Ji Tianxing couldn't be considered close, so it was taboo to speak too deeply. He also couldn't say too much about the Lord of the Imperial Residence, so as to avoid the opposite effect. And so, he hurriedly changed the topic, bringing up another matter. There's another matter. It's about the Imperial Court's third prince. Tianxing, do you want to hear about it? The Imperial tutor smiled at Ji Tianxing, his tone somewhat playful. Ji Tianxing's heart thumped. He raised his head to look at the Imperial tutor's expression and eyes, then met those deep and vast eyes that seemed to be able to see through one's heart. He immediately understood. The imperial tutor had long known about his grudge with the third prince, and had also guessed his intentions. Since he couldn't hide his grudge with the third prince from the imperial tutor, he simply nodded calmly. Of course I want to hear about it. Please tell me, imperial tutor. The imperial tutor slightly nodded and calmly said, back then, the imperial court sent people to escort the third prince to the northern battlefield. Along the way, an accident occurred, and the third prince mysteriously disappeared. After this old man's calculations and the investigation of the imperial court spies, we finally found a piece of news. The third prince is still alive, and very likely rescued by demon experts. He is now in the northern desert. What? Ji Tianxing immediately frowned, revealing a look of shock and confusion. How could demon experts rescue him? He actually fled to the northern desert and allied himself with the demons. The imperial tutor lightly shook his head and indifferently said, this old man also doesn't know why the demon experts saved him. We're still investigating. But this old man understands his nature. As long as he can survive, it's normal for him to collude with the demons for the sake of revenge and strength. Perhaps it won't be long before we see his figure in the demon camp. At that time, he will no longer be a prince of the imperial court, but a demon remnant. At this point, the imperial tutor sighed softly. His tone was rather complicated. Ji Tianxing curled his lips and sneered. When Long Zai Tian was a prince, he did all kinds of evil and would do anything to achieve his goal. Now that he was mingling with the devil race, he was bound to become an even more brutal devil, and his killing spree would intensify. Don't let me meet him, or else I will definitely kill him and behead him in public. The imperial tutor did not comment on this matter. He was well aware of the grudges between Ji Tianxing, Long Yun Xiao, and Long Zai Tian, but he never interfered. He paused for a moment, then said earnestly, Tianxing, you have to remember what I told you today. In the future, you must be careful in your actions and guard against the revenge and schemes of the demons. In addition, after you finish your business in the Eastern Sea, return to the central region as soon as possible. The emperor wants to see you and talk to you face to face. Ji Tianxing's interest was piqued. He raised his eyebrows and asked, May I ask imperial tutor, why did the emperor summon me? The imperial tutor chuckled and shook his head. This is the emperor's intention, how would this old man know? But according to this old man's guess, this matter must be important and secretive. Otherwise, why would the emperor need to talk to you face to face? I understand. Ji Tianxing nodded, indicating that he would return to the central region after finishing his business. The imperial tutor did not say anything else. He said goodbye and turned to leave. Ji Tianxing suddenly thought of something and reached out to stop him, asking, "Imperial tutor, I still have a question. I asked the imperial tutor to clear it up for me." "What is it?" The imperial tutor raised his eyebrows and looked at him. His expression was calm as he said, "Before, when Murong Zheng tried to kill me, there was a black-robed man hiding in the dark to ambush me. This person called Murong Zheng Senior Apprentice Brother. May I ask the imperial tutor, do you know this person's identity?" The imperial tutor thought for a bit before saying in a serious tone, "This old man does not know that person, but if that person is Murong Zheng's junior apprentice brother, then he is someone from the Heaven Evasion sect." Heaven Evasion sect? Ji Tianxing muttered in confusion. This sect is so powerful that they can teach two soul-refining realm experts. Why have I never heard of this sect before? The imperial tutor expressionlessly said, "The world is vast, the continent is vast, it is something you cannot imagine. In this world, there are many soul-refining realm experts, and there are many hidden families and sects. The Heaven Evasion sect is a hidden sect that has been passed down for thousands of years. They have martial arts inheritances from ancient times and have a very deep foundation. Tianxing, this old man knows what you want to do, but this old man advises you to give up on that idea. The mysterious and unknown Heaven Evasion sect is not something you can provoke. You should avoid them as much as possible." Ji Tianxing remembered his words and did not say anything, only nodding his head to show that he understood. Seeing his reaction, the imperial tutor knew that persuasion was useless. He waved the golden horsetail whisk in his hand and turned to fly away. Whoosh! The imperial tutor turned into a golden streak of light that streaked across the night sky like lightning, disappearing into the horizon in the blink of an eye. The world returned to silence, and the night was still as dark as ink. Ji Tianxing stood alone in the sky and murmured with an indifferent expression, "The Xiao clan is a hidden clan that lives in seclusion in the great swamp of the southern wasteland. The god-hidden sect that Shi Zhongjian belongs to is also a hidden sect. I never thought that even Murong Zheng would be a disciple of the Heaven Evasion sect. Just how powerful is the Heaven Evasion sect? Just how many unknown and mysterious powers are there in this world?" He suddenly realized that as his strength increased, his horizons widened, and he had a clearer understanding of this world. He believed that there were many more secrets in this world, waiting for him to discover them. 2 days later, when the sun was setting in the west, Ji Tianxing flew through the sky alone and arrived at the Blackrock City on the coast of the Eastern Sea. More than a year ago, when he arrived here, it was on a sunny afternoon. At that time, the sky was clear and the sun was warm. By the sea, there was a boundless golden beach that was covered with fine sand that was like gold. Layers of creases were constantly being washed by the waves. The endless blue sea brought with it a salty and moist sea breeze that blew gently. At that time, the sea was peaceful, making people feel relaxed and happy. The Blackrock City that sat by the sea was a bustling city built with deep-sea reefs. The city was ancient and vast, and the city was lively and peaceful. The common people lived and worked in peace, and the city was filled with a peaceful atmosphere. Ji Tianxing planned in his heart that he would look for Xiao Han after entering Blackrock City. He wanted to stay at the Donglin Divine General's mansion for a few days to recuperate and adjust his breathing. This would also allow Yun Yarrow and the Jinshan King to heal their injuries as soon as possible. However, when he flew to the sky above the Blackrock City, he found that the scene in front of him was terrible. The city was still that black ancient city, but the city was very quiet. There were very few people walking around, and there were only groups of guards patrolling the city. The common people in the city seemed to have hidden themselves. They stayed at home and did not dare to go out. The entire city was filled with a somber and sorrowful atmosphere. Chapter 1225. Blackstone City and the surrounding beaches were covered in a layer of darkness and decay. The air was filled with an unpleasant smell, and the city was lifeless, making people uneasy. Moreover, the defensive array of Blackstone City had been activated. A 5-colored light barrier with a radius of 100 miles enveloped Blackrock City like a heavenly curtain. Seeing this, Ji Tianxing frowned. Blackstone City is the main city of the 100 cities of the East Sea. Not only are there 100,000 elite soldiers stationed here, but Xiao Han is also there. How did it become like this? Did some disaster happen in the city? Why don't I see any civilians? Filled with doubts, he landed outside the city gate of Blackstone City. The huge city gate was tightly shut, and there was no one guarding the gate. The city guards were all standing on top of the 10-jong-tall city wall, looking down at him from above. Seeing him walk to the city gate, a pair of city guards on the wall immediately aimed their crossbows at him. The captain of the guards asked sternly, "Who are you?" Ji Tianxing took out the territorial lord's golden seal and said with dignity, "I am Ji Tianxing, the territorial lord of Tianchen. I am here to visit the divine general of Donglin. Please tell Lord Xiao." As soon as the city guards on the city wall saw the territorial lord's golden seal and sized him up, a burst of discussion immediately broke out. "It's Lord Ji Tianxing. It really is Lord Ji. I remember him. More than a year ago, he helped the divine general to suppress the sea demons of Gujade Bay. Wow, I've always heard that Lord Ji is the #1 genius of our clan, the most outstanding prince of the imperial residence. I didn't expect to see him in person today." Many of the city guards were overjoyed and excited. They looked at Ji Tianxing with eyes full of respect and admiration. Obviously, Ji Tianxing's reputation had spread across the continent. Even the people of the East Sea knew him. A year ago, he helped Xiao Han kill the sea demons that occupied Gujade Bay and became the hero of the East Sea. The people of the coastal cities sang his praises. Now that he had come to Blackstone City, how could the city guards not be excited? The city guards quickly opened the city gate and respectfully welcomed him into the city. The captain of the guards even personally led him into the city, rushing towards the Donglin Divine General's mansion. Along the way, Ji Tianxing observed the streets and alleys in the city. He found that there were indeed few people in the city, and all the doors and windows were tightly shut. The bustling streets and rows upon rows of shops were all closed, and there was no one in sight. Ji Tianxing was puzzled, so he asked the guard captain, "What happened in the city? Why are the commoners nowhere to be seen, and even the shops are closed?" The guard captain hurriedly replied respectfully, reporting to Lord Ji, "This subordinate also does not know what is going on." However, since half a month ago, the Divine General had ordered the entire city to be under martial law. The citizens were not allowed to go out, and he had even activated the city defense array. This subordinate has heard rumors in the army that various generals and soldiers are rescuing the people in the coastal cities. It is said that there is a plague in the coastal cities. Plague? Ji Tianxing frowned as his heart skipped a beat. He immediately recalled that 2 days ago, the imperial tutor had told him that the demon emperor had created many blood gods to spread plagues and disasters on the frontier battlefield. Could it be that those blood gods are not only causing trouble on the frontier battlefield, but have also broken through the defensive line and infiltrated into the Eastern Sea? That is impossible. The three races are all defending the frontier with all their strength, resisting the invasion of the demon race. How could they have let the demon race infiltrate here? Ji Tianxing was very puzzled and uneasy. Not long after, the guard captain led him to the Divine General's mansion. The guard captain turned and left. Ji Tianxing was welcomed into the Divine General's mansion by the housekeeper, and he went to the guest hall to take a seat. He had only sat for a while, and had just drunk half a cup of tea, when the sound of footsteps came from the door of the hall. He turned his head to look at the door, and saw a tall and imposing figure quickly walking in. "Tianxing, I did not think that we would meet again so soon after we parted. What wind blew you here, and you actually took the initiative to visit the Divine General's mansion?" The one who came was precisely Xiao Han, wearing a purple long robe with a dark red cloak draped over his shoulders, and his entire body emitted an iron-blooded domineering aura. He had just walked into the hall when he let out a hearty laugh and greeted Ji Tianxing. Behind him, there was even a delicate young girl wearing silver armor with a silver treasure sword hanging at her waist. It was precisely Xiao Ling-er. In the past, Xiao Ling-er looked very pretty and cute, and her temperament was also somewhat eccentric. But now, she wore silver armor and a blue cloak, and the appearance of wearing armor and carrying a sword appeared valiant and formidable, and her spirit was vigorous. Ji Tianxing nearly did not recognize her, and only saw her appearance clearly after staring blankly for a moment. And from the moment she stepped into the hall, she stared fixedly at Ji Tianxing. Her eyes flickered with joy, and her eyes were very bright. Very clearly, seeing Ji Tianxing again, her mood was very happy and excited, and she had many things in her heart that she wanted to pour out. Xiao Han walked in front of Ji Tianxing, cupped his hands, and bowed, then sat beside him and started chatting with him. Xiao Ling consciously stood behind Xiao Han, looking like an attendant. But this little attendant of hers was not considered competent. She did not have the dignified appearance of looking straight ahead. Instead, she kept staring at Ji Tianxing. Xiao Han drank tea as he asked Ji Tianxing, "Tianxing, why did you come to Blackrock City? Could it be that you're going to the East Seas Water Race Imperial Court again?" Ji Tianxing shook his head and explained, "This time, I'm not going to the Water Race Imperial Court, but to the East Seas Return Ruins. The journey is long, and my companions are also seriously injured. I want to stay temporarily in Blackrock City for a few days and help them recuperate. Lord Divine General, I'm here to disturb you for a few days. It won't affect your official duties, right?" Xiao Han hurriedly waved his hand and said warmly, "Tianxing, what are you saying? I can't be happier that you can come as a guest. What's there to talk about delaying? Don't worry, I'll immediately get Ling to pass down the order to arrange the best residence for you and provide healing elixirs to help your companions heal." Hearing him mention Xiao Ling Ji Tianxing turned his head to look at Xiao Ling and teased, "I haven't seen you for 2 months, but Miss Ling seems to have grown a lot. You look like a little general." Xiao Ling kept staring at him, waiting for a chance to talk to him. Now that she heard him praise her, she was overjoyed. She quickly smiled and said, "Big brother Tianxing, you flatter me. Ever since I left the Xiao clan, I followed Uncle Xiao Han. Oh no, followed Lord Divine General to Blackrock City. Now, I'm serving under Lord Divine General as the Deputy General of the East Forest Battleship. I usually lead the guards to protect the battleship and Lord Divine General." Ji Tianxing smiled and nodded in satisfaction. He asked again, "What about Xiao Chen? Why don't I see him?" Xiao Han laughed softly and explained, "Xiao Chen is now the Flying Tiger General under me. He leads the 4th Fleet and is in charge of the situation in Xuanfeng City." Chapter 1226. Xiao Han introduced Xiao Ling and Xiao Chen's situation. His face was full of smiles as he spoke, feeling satisfied and gratified. After Ji Tianxing heard that, he also nodded with a faint smile. "That is good. Lord Xiao guiding them can be considered unearthing talents. The two of them are working for the people, proving their talents and repaying Lord Xiao's kindness." "That's right." Xiao Han nodded in agreement and said, "At first, this Great One was worried that bringing them out of the Xiao clan and directly assigning positions to them would cause dissatisfaction among the soldiers under my command. After all, this Great One was also worried that people would slander me behind my back, saying that this Great One appointed people based on favoritism, placing relatives in the army. Fortunately, the two of them are very outstanding and did not disappoint. That was why the soldiers had nothing to say." After talking about Xiao Ling and Xiao Chen, Ji Tianxing withdrew his smile and asked Xiao Han, "Lord Xiao, when I came, I saw a terrible stench outside the city. Black qi drifted about. The citizens in the city were nowhere to be seen. All the doors and windows were tightly shut, and even the city protecting formation was activated. What exactly is going on? I heard that there seems to be a plague." Xiao Han was stunned for a moment. The smile on his face gradually faded, and he frowned deeply. Xiao Han's aura quickly changed from relaxed and joyful to heavy and solemn. Obviously, the happy smile just now was all an act. The frown on his face at this moment was the true portrayal of his mood. After a moment of silence, Xiao Han said in a solemn tone, "Tianxing, if you did not mention it, I did not want to tell you about this matter. It is because this matter is very troublesome and dangerous. You are just passing by and will be staying in Black Rock City for a few days. I do not want to trouble you and delay your companion's recuperation." Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and said, "Before I came to Black Rock City, I met the Imperial Tutor. He told me some information about the disaster and the plague. How troublesome and dangerous is this matter?" If you are helpless, the people in the coastal cities will be the ones to suffer. Even if I have matters to attend to in the Eastern Sea's sinkhole and am only passing by Blackrock City, it's impossible for me to ignore this matter since I've encountered it. Hearing this, Xiao Han's eyes immediately lit up. He quickly asked, Tianxing, you actually met the Imperial Tutor. Did the Imperial Tutor tell you the relevant information? Xiao Ling'er's eyes lit up as well, and she revealed a gaze filled with shock and adoration. To her, the Imperial Tutor of the human race was an unreachable existence, like a celestial being. On the other hand, Ji Tianxing and the Imperial Tutor seemed to be very close. This undoubtedly meant that Ji Tianxing's status was extremely high, and his status was extremely revered. She stared fixedly at Ji Tianxing, her heart secretly excited. That's right. Ji Tianxing nodded and said with a solemn expression, Lord Xiao, what exactly is going on? Please tell me in detail. Perhaps I can help. Xiao Han hesitated for a moment before nodding and saying, Tianxing, it's not that I don't care about the lives of the commoners. I just don't want to implicate you. Since you care about the commoners of the Eastern Sea and are willing to help, then I won't hide it from you. It's like this. On the morning of a month ago, the City Lord of Spirit Flood City suddenly sent me an urgent report, saying that there was a disaster in a fishing town outside the city. A large amount of black-red fog surged out of nowhere and enveloped the entire fishing town. Within a short 2 hours, over 20,000 commoners in the town were all dead. Their corpses were corroded into bones and blood. Even the chickens, ducks, pigs, dogs, and other livestock in the town, as well as the marine fish stored by each family, were all turned into pools of blood and rotting bones. The entire fishing town was truly wiped out. At this point, Xiao Han's expression became even more solemn, and his tone became even lower. When the City Lord of Spirit Flood City received the news, he sent people to the fishing town to check on the situation. However, the people he sent were all poisoned to death by the black-red fog and turned into blood and rotting bones like the commoners. Later, the sea breeze blew away the black-red fog, and the highly toxic fog spread out and eroded the 2 surrounding towns. The commoners and living creatures in the 2 towns were all killed and corroded by the poisonous fog. The poisonous fog continued to spread and even invaded Spirit Flood City and the bay, killing countless marine fish. The situation was uncontrollable, and the poisonous fog continued to spread, turning into a terrible plague that began to spread to the surrounding cities. All the commoners in the towns and cities that were infected by the highly toxic plague were killed by the plague. Spirit Flood City was the place where the plague broke out, and now it has become an empty city. More than half of the commoners were killed or injured, and the lucky survivors have all fled. The same thing happened to the commoners in the other cities. When they heard the news of the plague spreading, they were all scared out of their wits and fled with their families. Now, all the cities in the Eastern Sea are in dire straits. Corpses are everywhere, and the commoners are homeless. When Ji Tianxing heard this, his face became very unsightly. He asked in a low voice, the highly toxic plague has spread to Blackstone City in just a month. Is that why you closed the city and activated the Great City Defense Array, so that the commoners can hide in their homes and are not allowed to go out? Xiao Han nodded and said in a helpless and pained tone, Yes, I really have no other choice. The coastal cities are in chaos, and the commoners are in a state of panic. Blackstone City is the main city of the Eastern Sea, and I am the overseer here. If the commoners of Blackstone City run away, then the billions of commoners in the Eastern Sea will no longer have any support and will collapse. Ji Tianxing nodded slightly to show that he understood. He asked in a low voice, Have you calculated the losses and casualties caused by the highly toxic plague in the past month? Xiao Han nodded. His tone was heavy as he said a number that made one's heart sink. So far, the highly toxic plague has eroded 35 cities and killed more than 2 million commoners. It has forced more than 20 million commoners to flee their homes and become homeless. The 500,000 elite soldiers under my command have been comforting the commoners and helping them to move their camps to avoid the plague. In the past month, more than 40,000 soldiers have died. In addition, I have sent a large number of experts to investigate the origin of the plague and discuss a solution to the highly toxic plague. Unfortunately, until now, I have not found the origin of the plague, nor do I have a solution to the plague. I only know that the highly toxic plague should be related to the demon race. It seems to be some kind of evil secret art passed down from ancient times. After the commoners killed by the plague turn into blood and rotten bones, they will quickly condense into a blood cloud and disappear mysteriously. The weaker warriors and commoners would turn into a pool of blood within 2 hours after being infected by the plague. Only experts of Yuan Dan stage and above can hold on for 10 days. Experts of the heavenly origin stage can hold on for about a month before they die from the poison and turn into blood. Hearing this, Ji Tianxing frowned and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Chapter 12:27. Blood God's Son? Xiao Han frowned and looked at Ji Tianxing in confusion. His eyes were filled with anticipation. Tianxing, do you know the origin of the poisonous plague? Ji Tianxing nodded. When he saw that there were no outsiders in the hall and only he and Xiao Ling were present, he explained, "It was the imperial preceptor who told me about the blood god's son. Back then, the demon king captured my wife, Yun Yao, and brought her to the northern desert. He used an ancient secret technique to turn her into a blood god's son, giving birth to a demonic soul in her body and turning her into a powerful evil demon. After that, I snuck into the heavenly demon palace in the northern desert and saved Yun Yao. Then, I asked a peerless expert to save Yun Yao. However, the demon king completely mastered the blood god's son's secret technique. In this year, he created at least dozens of blood god's sons. The blood god's sons had the power of the ancestor fiend celestial and could bring about the 3 calamities and 9 tribulations and plagues. Under the escort of many demon kings, they snuck into the battlefields at the borders of the 3 races. In the past few months, plagues kept breaking out on the battlefields at the borders. Just our race alone had more than 8 million casualties. The number of casualties among the demon race and the water race must be quite high too. I thought the blood god's sons would only cause trouble at the borders and wouldn't sneak into the hinterland of the continent. I didn't expect the blood god's sons to come to the eastern sea and spread the poisonous plague in the coastal cities." Xiao Han listened to Ji Tianxing attentively. His expression kept changing, and his eyes became more serious. He was even more worried. When Xiao Ling heard the words ancestor fiend celestial and 3 calamities and 9 tribulations, she was confused. Her attention was all on Ji Tianxing's wife, Yun Yao. She imagined the scene of Yun Yao being captured by the demon king and Ji Tianxing sneaking into the demon's nest alone to save Yun Yao. Ji Tianxing's love for his wife made her feel extremely sacred and touched. She was even more envious of Yun Yao. She even thought that if Ji Tianxing was willing to treat her like this, she would be satisfied even if she died. She would be the happiest person in the world. At this moment, Xiao Han frowned and asked, "Ancestor fiend celestial? Isn't that the Grim Reaper in ancient myths and legends? When I was in the Xiao clan, it mentioned the fiend celestial and 9 tribulations. He was the incarnation of death. But the ancestral demon god had already fallen after the great battle of the gods, so how could he possibly appear now?" Ji Tianxing glanced at Xiao Ling and saw that she was in a daze, so he sent a voice transmission to Xiao Han. "Lord Xiao, this matter concerns the fate of the various clans in the continent, and it's an enormous secret. Of it. Now that tens of thousands of years had passed, the demonic emperor was doing everything he could to revive the ancestor demonic god and unify the entire Tianxian continent. The demon emperor wants to revive the fiend celestial." Xiao Han's expression changed drastically. His body shook violently, revealing a look of horror. As a divine general and a disciple of the Xiao clan, he had some understanding of ancient myths and legends. He knew how powerful the fiend celestial was. Because of this, when he heard that the Grim Reaper was about to be revived, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Ji Tianxing saw that he was in a daze from shock, so he tried to persuade him, "Lord Xiao, you don't have to be so worried. I've already asked the imperial preceptor to inform the emperor of this news. I believe the emperor will have a decision. The most important thing now is to find a way to solve the plague in the cities of East Sea and find the culprit, the blood god." Xiao Han came back to his senses and nodded quickly. "Yes, Tianxing, you are right. Even if the demon emperor wants to revive the fiend celestial, it is not something we can stop. The plague in the cities of East Sea is an imminent disaster. We have to solve it as soon as possible. After calming down, he said to Ji Tianxing, Tianxing, I have investigated the plague and found that it is related to the demon race. I suspect that there are demon race experts who have sneaked into the cities of East Sea, so I sent a large number of elite experts to investigate in secret. Indeed, I found hundreds of demon race experts who disguised themselves as humans. However, regarding the blood god's son and the elite demon king that you mentioned, my subordinates have not been able to find any clues. Tianxing, do you have any suggestions or plans? Ji Tianxing shook his head and said with a heavy expression, I have just arrived at Black Rock City today and have not figured out the situation. I also have not checked the cities that are affected by the plague. I don't have any plans or clues for the time being. How about this? Didn't you say that Xiao Chen is in charge of the situation in Xuanfeng City and rescuing the people? Since Xuanfeng City is affected by the plague, let's go there now and check the situation. Xiao Han quickly shook his head and persuaded, Tianxing, you have traveled a long way to Black Rock City. You don't have to be in a hurry. Stay in the mansion and rest first. Aren't your companions heavily injured and in urgent need of treatment? Let's settle them down first. Ji Tianxing thought for a while and nodded, that's good too. Lord Xiao, please arrange a place for us to stay first. I will go check on their injuries. After I deal with their injuries, I will go with you to Xuanfeng City. All right, let's do that. Xiao Han agreed without hesitation. He personally led Ji Tianxing out of the main hall and rushed to a courtyard. This courtyard was in the depths of the divine general's estate. It was very safe and had a quiet and elegant environment. It was the most suitable place for secluded cultivation and healing without worrying about being disturbed. After Ji Tianxing settled down in the courtyard, he used his divine sense to enter the Sword World to check on the situation in Peaceful Earth City. After a year of development, Peaceful Earth City had doubled in size and was even more majestic than before. Inside the city lord's estate, the Golden Mountain King was still sleeping on the ice jade bed in the secret room. In another secret room in the estate, Yun Yarrow was also circulating her energy to heal and recover her powers. She had helped Ji Tianxing block Ji Wuzuo's sneak attack before, and her left shoulder and arm had almost been severed. Half of her body was a bloody mess. She was heavily injured. After a few days of circulating her energy, her wounds had already stabilized. Her wounds had all closed up, without leaving behind any scars or lingering problems. In another 5 or 6 days at most, she would be able to use the great power of the Neptunian god Pearl to quickly heal and return to her peak condition. Seeing that Yun Yarrow was fine, Ji Tianxing stopped worrying. He flew into the Sword World and entered the Golden Mountain King's secret room. He helped heal the Golden Mountain King. The Golden Mountain King's wounds were just too heavy. His left arm and right leg had disappeared, and his neck had almost been severed. His body had basically been completely destroyed, and his soul was heavily injured as well. If he slowly healed, he would need at least 10 years. However, it was impossible for Ji Tianxing to let him waste so much time. He personally used the secret technique of the Wood Emperor's umbrella to heal the Golden Mountain King. 12 hours later, he had expended almost half of his powers and finally stabilized the Golden Mountain King's wounds. Chapter 1228. The night passed quickly. By the next morning, the Jinshan King's divine soul had stabilized. Next, he only needed to recuperate in the secret chamber, and he would be able to recover in about half a year. Ji Tianxing finished casting the spell and meditated for a while before leaving the Sword World. When he returned to his room, he saw that the sky outside the window was already bright and the sun was rising. Therefore, he left the room to look for Xiao Han. When he saw Xiao Han in the study room, Xiao Han was still busy going through official documents and handling the military affairs of the coastal cities. It was obvious that he had been busy all night without rest. After the two greeted each other, Xiao Han put down a pile of documents and memorials and left the study room with Ji Tianxing, ready to set off. Xiao Ling was already prepared and waiting at the entrance of the Divine General's estate. Although she had not rested for a few days and had been busy with official affairs. But today, she was able to work with Ji Tianxing to investigate the plague disaster. She was very excited and full of spirit. The three of them left the Divine General's estate together and quickly left Blackrock City for Xuanfeng City. On the way, Xiao Han briefed Ji Tianxing about the relevant situation and news. Xuanfeng City was 50,000 miles away from Blackrock City. It was also a coastal city with a history of more than 1,000 years. There were more than 500,000 people living in it. There was a bay near the city that was rich in fishing, pearls, and jade. There were 20,000 elite soldiers stationed near Xuanfeng City to protect the city and the bay. Since the plague spread to Xuanfeng City 3 days ago, Xiao Han sent Xiao Chen to take charge of the situation and lead the 20,000 elite soldiers to move the people in the city. Hearing this, Ji Tianxing could not help but ask, "Lord Xiao, the toxic plague is very powerful and will continue to spread. So far, more than 30 cities have been invaded by the toxic plague, and more than 20 million people have lost their homes. Where are the people being moved to? Did you send a large number of soldiers to protect them?" Xiao Han's eyes were a little dim as he said in a low voice, "I set up 4 temporary strongholds on the Tianchuan plain near the inland as the gathering place for the refugees. I sent 50,000 elite soldiers to protect the 4 refugee camps, and more than a dozen Sky Origin realm experts to guard them. Currently, the highly toxic plague was only spreading to the coastal cities. It wouldn't spread to the Tianchuan plains for the time being. However, the incident happened so suddenly that most of the civilians fled in a panic. They were unable to wait for the elite soldiers to protect and evacuate them. More than 20 million people fled their homes, but most of them were stranded outside, fleeing in all directions. The total number of people who successfully moved to the Tianchuan plains and entered the 4 refugee camps is only about 5 million. Ji Tianxing frowned and said with a heavy heart, "If that's the case, there are at least 10 million people who are scattered in all directions. They can't be found or protected." "Yes." Xiao Han's expression turned grave as he said in a deep voice, "Cultivators with some strength have a high chance of escaping the Eastern Sea and returning to the mainland. However, the ordinary people without any martial strength would most likely die a violent death in the wilderness. The demon race is so cruel and vicious, using the blood god to create such a vicious plague. If it is not stopped and contained, the people of the Eastern Sea will be plunged into misery and suffering. 9 out of 10 houses will be destroyed." Ji Tianxing nodded and comforted him, "Lord Xiao, don't worry. The casualties and pain are all temporary. Since ancient times, evil has never triumphed over good. I believe that we will be able to solve the blood god and the plague soon and return peace to the people. What I am most worried about now is the 4 refugee camps in the Tianchuan plains. There are no cities or residences there, and they lack water, food, and all kinds of resources. How long could the suffering commoners hold on? If the blood god of the demon race sneaks into the refugee camps, won't we be wiped out?" Xiao Han nodded and said, "Tianxing, you are right. This is the biggest problem we are facing now, and it is also my sore point. However, it is difficult for me to solve the situation in a short period of time. I only hope that the people of the Eastern Sea are strong enough and can unite to overcome this difficulty." Ji Tianxing sighed and said with a bright light in his eyes, "Now, there are tens of thousands of people dying every day. The fastest way to solve the plague is to solve the root cause. As long as we find the blood god who spread the plague and eliminate him, everything will be easily solved." Xiao Han and Xiao Ling both expressed their agreement. 12 hours passed, and it was evening when Ji Tianxing and the other 2 arrived at Xuanfeng City. At this time, the sun was setting in the west, and the faint golden sunlight shone on the surface of the sea. However, on the endless coastline, the seawater was suffused with black gas, and the golden beach had also become dirty. The corpses and rotting bones of many fish were washed to the beach by the waves, emitting black gas and a foul smell. 20 miles away from the beach, there was an ancient city built with brown reefs. It was Xuanfeng City. The ancient city was squarish and covered an area of more than 70 miles. It emitted an ancient aura. The whistling sea breeze blew continuously, but it could not blow away the black gas and fog around Xuanfeng City. When Ji Tianxing and the other 2 arrived at Xuanfeng City, they saw piles of bones and corpses scattered on the grassland and plains outside the city. There were tens of thousands of corpses. There were young men and women, as well as old and weak women and children. They had all died a few days ago, and their deaths were strangely tragic. The flesh on the bones had all disappeared, leaving only a pool of dark red bloodstains on the ground. It was obvious that it had long dried up. The sky was filled with strands of blood chi, which gathered into streaks of blood mist and flew towards the northwest. When Xiao Han and Xiao Ling saw such a shocking scene, they were so angry that their bodies trembled. They cursed the devil race for being heartless. Ji Tianxing, on the other hand, observed in detail and suddenly made a discovery. He stretched out his hand to sense the sea breeze and frowned. Lord Xiao, look at the blood mist in the sky. It's all flying towards the northwest. On the surface, the blood mist seems to have been blown away by the sea breeze, but the sea breeze is now in the southwest direction. Moreover, with the current speed of the sea breeze, it's obviously inconsistent with the speed of the blood mist flying away. Hearing this, Xiao Han immediately raised his eyebrows and said, Tianxing, back then, I used a day to think of this point and found this clue. I didn't expect you to find a clue as soon as you came to Xuanfeng City. You're really amazing. Xiao Han praised his intelligence and wisdom from the bottom of his heart. Then, he said in a deep voice, I know what you want to say. In fact, I've already investigated it. The blood mist is formed from the flesh and soul of the common people. It's obvious that it was attracted by some kind of force and gathered towards a place. Back then, I suspected that the devil race's powerhouses were secretly devouring the blood mist to strengthen their own devil power. Or maybe, the devil race's powerhouses set up a great formation somewhere to gather the blood mist in the sky to strengthen their power. However, when I followed the direction of the blood mist, I didn't find anything. The blood mist also changed direction. Chapter 1229. Ji Tianxing originally thought that he would be able to find some clues from the sea breeze and the blood mist's direction. If he followed the blood mist's flight path, he would be able to find the demon powerhouse and the blood god's son. However, Xiao Han had already thought of this and had taken action to investigate. The little bit of hope that had just risen in his heart was immediately extinguished. Helpless, he could only temporarily dismiss this idea and follow Xiao Han to the city gate of Xuanfeng City. The closer they got to Xuanfeng City, the thicker the black gas in the sky outside the city. Xiao Han's expression became serious as he reminded her in a low voice, Ling you must be careful. Don't come into contact with this black gas. This is a highly toxic plague. The power of the highly toxic plague is very terrifying. Only soul refinement realm powerhouses can resist it and not be afraid of the plague's corrosion. Those below the soul refinement realm, even heaven origin realm powerhouses, will be corroded into white bones within a month. As he spoke, Xiao Han released the white light of his divine soul, forming a light shield to protect Xiao Ling. The three of them passed through layers of black gas and fog and finally arrived at the city gate. They saw that Xuanfeng City, which was shrouded in black gas and poisonous fog, had already activated the Great City Defense Array. A 5-colored shield with a radius of dozens of miles enveloped the entire city. The powerful 5-colored shield could block most of the black gas and poisonous fog. However, there were still traces of black gas floating in the sky inside the city, but the density of the poisonous fog was much lower than outside the city. Rows of armored Eastwood Army soldiers stood guard on top of the city walls, ready for battle. The 500,000 East Forest Army under Xiao Han's command were all elite troops, and they were also the guardians of the East Sea. Even if the highly toxic plague attacked and the black gas kept surging in the city, the East Forest Army was not afraid to retreat. Their bodies were as straight as javelins, standing on the city wall. Seeing the arrival of Ji Tianxing and the other two, an East Forest Army centurion pressed his hand on his sword and asked in a dignified voice, "Who are you?" Although this centurion was tall and strong, his strength was not bad, and he was full of energy when he spoke. His face was black. His left hand had already corroded and festered, revealing eerie white bones. The East Forest Army soldiers not far from him had also been corroded by the poisonous black gas. Their bodies were rotting, and black blood was seeping out of their faces. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianxing couldn't help but think to himself, Xiao Han is strict in his management of the army. The Donglin army is indeed an elite army. Although these soldiers are small fries, They are still admirable. Xiao Han took a step forward and said with a dignified expression, I'm Xiao Han, and I'm here to inspect military affairs in Xuanfeng City. Hearing his dignified voice, the 30 or so Eastward Army soldiers on the city wall immediately became solemn. They all knelt on one knee and saluted. Greetings, Divine General. More than 30 people moved in unison. Their voices were full of energy and were very majestic. However, quite a few soldiers had been corroded by the strong poison. They were still able to stand. As soon as they knelt down, the flesh on their legs, heads, necks, and other parts of their bodies instantly collapsed. Black blood oozed out, revealing their white bones. This was especially true for the centurion. Half of the flesh on his face had festered and fallen off, revealing his white bones. Black blood flowed down, drenching half of his armor. Enduring such heart-wrenching pain, he actually didn't collapse. He only let out a painful groan. Xiao Ling'er's heart clenched as she watched, and her eyes turned red. However, she held back her tears and didn't cry out loud. This was because this was the dignity of the Donglin army. This was the iron bones of the Donglin army. Xiao Han took a deep breath and bowed deeply to the 30 or so Eastward Army soldiers on the city wall. Soldiers, you have worked hard. You are the pride of the Donglin army. You are the pride of me, Xiao Han. The 30 or so Eastward Army soldiers saluted Xiao Han again. Their attitudes were respectful, and their eyes revealed fanaticism and worship. Half of the face of the centurion in the lead trembled. He said in a low and hoarse voice, Divine General, compared to the people in the city who are suffering, we are not suffering. Xiao Han nodded slightly and didn't say anything else. It was the blessing of the people of the Eastern Sea that his soldiers could be so iron-blooded, lofty, and loyal. Soon, the Donglin army opened the city gate and welcomed Ji Tianxing and the other two into the city. As soon as they entered Xuanfeng City, the first thing they saw was a gloomy fog and a miserable scene of bloody rain. In the entire Xuanfeng City, the streets and alleys were filled with city guards and people running around in panic. The doors and windows of every household were tightly shut. Many houses were on fire, and black smoke rose into the sky. Squads after squads of armored city guards escorted 3 to 5 commoners in ragged clothes, hurriedly passing through the streets and alleys, running into the distance. On the wide black stone road, there were many corpses of people lying on the ground. Black blood flowed like a stream on the ground. The screams of men and women, old and young, painful roars, mournful howls, and heart-wrenching cries constantly came from all directions. Ji Tianxing's face was solemn as he walked forward. His eyes swept across the surroundings, and he immediately saw a tragic scene. A group of city guards supported and carried a few people who were emitting black smoke. They escaped from the houses and ran toward the city center. However, this group of people didn't run far before an old woman with gray hair collapsed on the spot. Her flesh fell off and fell to the ground. She screamed in pain and rolled on the ground. In just a few breaths, her flesh was completely corroded into black blood. She had turned into a small skeleton, curled up on the ground. Black blood flowed silently under her body, and wisps of blood energy flew into the sky. A few city guards paused for a moment, then quickly supported a few other people and continued to run toward the city center. However, before they could run a few steps, another child in the arms of a city guard let out a painful scream. It was a little girl of 6 or 7 years old. She was wearing a blue dress and had 2 pigtails. She was very cute. However, in just a few breaths, her flesh and blood quickly decayed and turned into a pool of black blood. Only a frail and petite skeleton was left. It was still covered in a tattered blue dress and was placed on the ground by the city guards. Not long after, one of the city guards also collapsed while running. The heavy armor and saber hit the black stone ground, producing a crisp sound. His flesh and blood festered. He screamed in pain and rolled on the ground. Soon, he stopped breathing. In a few breaths, a young warrior in his 20s turned into a pool of black blood, a pile of armor and saber, and a set of white bones. The other city guards and commoners were numb when they saw such a tragic scene. They were not afraid, nor did they cry. They only continued to run with wooden expressions. There was no other way. In these 2 days, similar scenes kept repeating, and everyone's emotions were almost numb. The people in the city were like walking corpses. They had almost lost the emotions of crying, sympathy, fear, and worry. Everyone was gloomy and hopeless, waiting helplessly for death to come. Chapter 12:30. When Ji Tianxing was at the Divine General's estate, he had heard the number of casualties reported by Xiao Han. 35 cities had been invaded by the plague. More than 2 million people had died, and more than 20 million people had lost their homes. These numbers sounded shocking and made one's heart heavy. However, without seeing the scene of the people being poisoned, numbers were just numbers. At this moment, Ji Tianxing was walking in Xuanfeng City. He saw with his own eyes the scene of people and soldiers rotting on the ground and eventually turning into blood and bones. Such a tragic scene was extremely shocking. It made one feel incomparable grief and indignation. A ball of anger was burning fiercely in one's heart. The closer the three of them got to the city center, the more people they saw running around in a panic. The corpses and blood on the ground were also denser. Ji Tianxing was not a powerless commoner, nor was he a weak soldier or martial artist. Seeing such a tragic scene, he would not feel despair and numbness like ordinary people. His expression became colder and colder, and his heart became heavier. His body surged with monstrous anger, and his whole body faintly emitted a soaring killing intent. His hatred and killing intent for the demon race rapidly increased to the limit. At this moment, he only wanted to find the demon race expert and the blood god as quickly as possible and kill them all. After a while, the three of them passed through the chaotic streets filled with corpses and entered the city lord's estate of Xuanfeng City. Inside and outside the city lord's estate, not only were there many Donglin soldiers guarding, there were also many city guards running back and forth. The soldiers rescued some old, weak, sick, disabled, or injured commoners from all over the city and hurriedly carried them into the city lord's estate. On the streets and open space outside the city lord's estate, there were many piles of bones and corpses. The streets and ground were dyed black by the blood. The sky above the city lord's estate was filled with dense black gas, emitting a heavy and solemn aura of death. Ji Tianxing knew with a glance that there must be a large number of commoners gathered in the city lord's estate. The facts proved that his guess was indeed correct. When the three of them walked into the city lord's estate, they saw that the estate was overcrowded. Commoners with terrified expressions were squeezed everywhere. There were also many injured or poisoned commoners who were lying on the ground with pained expressions as they continuously cried out and wailed. Xiao Ling inquired about Xiao Chen's location from the guard. When she found out that Xiao Chen was handling government affairs in the main hall, she hurriedly rushed over. However, when the three of them arrived at the main hall of the city lord's mansion, the entrance was already filled with suffering commoners. There were also countless soldiers entering and exiting, their expressions grave and anxious. Xiao Chen sat in the city lord's seat at the head of the hall. He was discussing something urgently with City Lord Zun Feng and a few generals. From time to time, captains and commanders would rush to the main hall to report the situation to him or ask for instructions on the next step. Xiao Chen was swamped with work. He appeared fatigued, but he was even more anxious and worried. When he saw Xiao Han and Ji Tianxing arrive, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly stood up to greet them. This subordinate pays his respects to the Divine General and young Master Ji. City Master Zun Feng, the captains, and the commanders hurriedly bowed. Xiao Han waved his hand, indicating that everyone need not be overly courteous. He walked to the main seat and sat down. He asked Xiao Chen, what's the current situation in Zunfeng City? Have all the commoners been transferred? Xiao Chen did not dare to waste time and did not waste any time. He directly answered, before the outbreak of the toxic plague, this subordinate had already ordered 4 generals and 12 commanders to successfully transfer 300,000 commoners. They should be arriving at the Tianchuan Plain soon. However, the toxic plague had infiltrated the Great City Barrier Formation and stopped the transfer plan. More than 300,000 commoners are trapped in the city. Now, close to 100,000 commoners have died inside and outside the city. There are only 240,000 people left. Only half of them were temporarily transferred to the underground secret rooms, passages, and the city lord's mansion. Everyone immediately understood. Xiao Han immediately frowned and asked in a deep voice, "If that's the case, there are still 120,000 commoners that can't be relocated." Xiao Chen nodded and said in a serious tone, "That's indeed the case. However, Divine General, please rest assured. This subordinate has already arranged for the soldiers to fully excavate the underground fortress and passages. At the latest, 20,000 soldiers will be able to excavate enough passages and secret rooms for the commoners to live in by tomorrow morning." However, Xiao Han shook his head and said with a grave expression, "Right now, the outbreak of the toxic plague is at its fiercest. I don't think those 120,000 commoners can last until tomorrow morning. Immediately bring this seat to the underground secret room. This seat will personally excavate the underground passage at the fastest speed possible." As he spoke, he was about to follow Xiao Chen into the underground passage. The toxic plague drifted in the air and spread through the air. However, in this 1 month, Xiao Han and the others found a way to temporarily avoid the toxic plague. That was to move the commoners deep underground. Of course, this was only a temporary stopgap measure. It would not last long. The toxic plague's corrosive power was very strong. The underground passages and secret rooms could only delay the spread of the plague. After understanding this point, Ji Tianxing suddenly opened his mouth and said in a deep voice, "Lord Xiao, you don't have to worry about this matter. Leave it to me. Xiao Chen, give me the blueprints for the underground passage and the fortress. Then, withdraw those 20,000 soldiers and let them search and rescue the commoners." Hearing this, Xiao Han and Xiao Chen were both stunned. They looked at him in disbelief. "Tianxing, could it be that you have a way to quickly excavate the underground passage and shelter?" "Young Master Ji, this concerns the lives of 120,000 commoners. Are you sure you want to do this?" Ji Tianxing nodded his head with a solemn expression and said in a low voice, "Of course. Lord Xiao, I can complete the task within 4 hours and properly settle the 120,000 commoners." Seeing his solemn expression and his confident and resolute tone, Xiao Han chose to believe him. "Tianxing, ever since I met you, you have continuously created one miracle after another. Although you want to complete the task within 4 hours, no one would believe you. However, I believe that you will definitely create another miracle." After saying this, he ordered in a deep voice, "Xiao Chen, immediately follow young Master Ji's orders." Although Xiao Chen was somewhat hesitant, he did not dare to disobey Xiao Han's orders. He could only cup his hands and salute, indicating that he would obey. He gave the blueprints for the underground passage and shelter to Ji Tianxing. Then, he went to relay the order. Ji Tianxing took the blueprints and looked at them for a while. Then, he walked to the courtyard outside the main hall and entered the underground passage from the corner of the courtyard. Then, he opened the Sword World and summoned the Gold Mountain King's son, Uro. Uro was the prince of the Earth Spirit race. His status was high, and his authority was second only to his father. Ji Tianxing gave the blueprints to Uro and asked him to gather 800 Earth Spirit race warriors to excavate the underground passage and shelter as quickly as possible. After looking at the blueprints, Uro immediately patted his chest and promised that he would complete the task very quickly. Chapter 1231. The City Lord's mansion was still bustling with noise. Refugees were everywhere. There were civilians dying every second, turning into pools of blood in front of everyone's eyes, leaving only skeletons behind. Children's cries, men, women, old, and young screams of pain and anguish rang out in the City Lord's mansion, causing everyone's heart to feel heavy. The 20,000 Eastwood Army soldiers who were digging underground quickly retreated from the City Lord's mansion and went to search for civilians. The ground was quiet, as if nothing had happened. However, what everyone couldn't see was that there were hundreds of elf-like dwarfs active in the rock layers and soil 1,000 meters below the City Lord's mansion. They were all using their race's talent to control the power of metal and earth. They were digging tunnels at an unbelievable speed, building many tunnels and shelters. The underground of Zunfeng City, within a radius of 50 miles, was changing at an extremely fast speed. 2 hours passed quickly, and an underground castle gradually appeared in the depths of Zunfeng City. Although this underground castle was still very simple and crude, It was huge in scale and extended in all directions. It could accommodate hundreds of thousands of civilians for a short period of time. Half an hour later, the construction of the underground castle was completed. Ari Luo led the 800 warriors and reported to Ji Tianxing excitedly. Ji Tianxing knew that Ari Luo and the Earth Spirit race warriors had done their best. He was very gratified and grateful for this. He put Ari Luo and the warriors into the sword world and then passed on the good news to Xiao Han. Xiao Han, Xiao Chen, and Xiao Ling were gathered together to discuss countermeasures. They had anxious expressions on their faces. After Ji Tianxing arrived, the three of them stopped talking and looked at him in unison. Tianxing, how's the progress of the project? Xiao Han asked expectantly. Ji Tianxing nodded and said calmly, the underground shelter has been completed. We can now move all the civilians there. What? It's only been 3 hours, and it's already completed. Young Master Ji, are you sure it can accommodate 120,000 civilians? Xiao Han, Xiao Chen, and Xiao Ling were all dumbfounded. They looked at Ji Tianxing in disbelief. Ji Tianxing did not explain anything. He pointed to the ground under his feet and said, "You will know when you see it." The three of them hurriedly released their spiritual senses and soul power and probed 1,000 meters into the ground to investigate the situation. They immediately saw that dense tunnels had appeared in the rock stratum deep below the ground at some point, extending in all directions and interweaving with each other. Hundreds of spacious and enormous caves were scattered deep underground and connected by numerous tunnels. Thousands of small caves had been dug into the walls of those caves, which could accommodate the temporary residence of the common people. This was a refuge for the common people to hide in. Each shelter could hold thousands of people. With hundreds of shelters added together, they could really hold 500,000 people. Seeing this scene, Xiao Han and the other two were once again dumbfounded, shocked to the point of being dumbstruck. Oh my God! How was this an underground passage and shelter? This is simply an underground city. Unbelievable! Not to mention 120,000 commoners, even 500,000 commoners wouldn't be a problem. This is simply a miracle. Young Master Ji, how did you do it? This is simply like the power of a god. Seeing the exaggerated and shocked reactions of the three, Ji Tianxing did not explain anything. He waved his hand and said, "Don't waste time, quickly move the commoners to the underground city." The structure of the underground city is very tight, and the ventilation and drainage facilities are very safe. As long as it is protected by a formation, it will not be invaded by the plague for at least a month. Xiao Han once again revealed a shocked expression, and said with a joyful tone, "Tianxing, this is really great. In this way, the commoners can hide for at least a month." Xiao Chen immediately bowed to Ji Tianxing and said excitedly, "Young Master Ji, on behalf of the commoners of Xuanfeng City, I express my most sincere gratitude to you. You are their second parent." After bowing, he turned to leave and passed down the order to move the commoners. Xiao Ling looked at Ji Tianxing with bright eyes, revealing a deep shock and admiration. The closer she got to Ji Tianxing and the more she understood him, the more she felt that he was incomparably mysterious, unfathomable, and omnipotent. She even couldn't help but fantasize, how could there be such a perfect man in this world? Following that, Xiao Chen and the soldiers of Donglin army were busy moving the commoners. Xiao Han also found the ventilation and water outlets of the underground city and set up a few soul-grade formations to protect the air and water from the corrosion of the poisonous plague. Ji Tianxing let Xiao Ling stay in the city lord's mansion while he left alone. He flew around the city to check on the situation of the plague. He wanted to find some clues in the city to find a solution to the poisonous plague as soon as possible. After an hour, Ji Tianxing flew around Xuanfeng City and finally landed on the tower of the plaza in the city. He stood at the top of the tower, which was 100 zhong tall, and looked around expressionlessly. The sky was covered with dark clouds, and the poisonous black gas was getting denser and denser. The endless dark red blood gas also gathered into a blood mist that covered the sky and flew into the distance. Just now, he looked around the city and saw that 9 out of 10 houses were empty. Most of the commoners had fled Xuanfeng City or moved to the underground city. The streets and alleys, as well as the houses, were filled with skeletons. There were as many as 100,000 skeletons. It was a ghastly sight. Unfortunately, he didn't find any useful clues. He even released his divine sense to search the entire city. He checked the 200,000 refugees, but he didn't find the demon in disguise. At this moment, he stood alone on the top of the tower. After he calmed down, he silently thought and analyzed. 1,000 years ago, the demon emperor snuck into Zhengzhou and wantonly spread the demonic Gu, causing the deaths of millions of commoners. The demonic Gu killed millions of commoners, but it gathered an endless amount of flesh, blood, and souls for the demon emperor, causing his strength to increase explosively. Almost no one could defeat him. Now that the demonic Gu can no longer harm the commoners of Zhengzhou, the demon emperor used the ancient evil technique, blood god, to harm the commoners of the three races again. The blood god carries the 3 calamities and 9 tribulations, which is 10 times more dangerous than the demonic Gu. That's why it caused such a tragic situation today. The demon emperor must have his own scheme and purpose. It's very likely that he wants to use the flesh, blood, and souls of the commoners to increase his strength again. Although the poisonous plague can't hurt soul refinement realm cultivators and can only kill mortals below the soul refinement realm, how rare are soul refinement realm cultivators in this world? Even if every soul refinement realm cultivator tries their best to protect the commoners, they are too busy. The only way to solve this disaster is to eliminate the blood god. Unfortunately, the blood god is hiding in the dark. It's impossible to guard against them. It's very difficult to find them. Thinking of this, Ji Tianxing looked at the dark red blood mist in the sky. His eyes flashed with a cold light. No matter how deep the blood god is hiding, the ultimate purpose of creating this disaster is to devour flesh, blood, and souls. Chapter 1232. Ji Tianxing pondered silently for a while, and he had an idea and plan in his mind. After the citizens were corroded by the poisonous plague, their flesh and blood turned into blood qi and flew away in the sky. Even a demon commander in the soul refinement realm couldn't control the blood qi from 100 miles away. From the looks of it, the blood god's son and the demon race's powerhouses are very likely to be lurking around Zunfeng City. Or, they set up some kind of array formation around Zunfeng City. Xiao Han investigated according to this clue and didn't find the array formation or the blood god's son, but it doesn't mean that I can't find it either. Thus, he quickly flew back to the city lord's mansion and found Xiao Han and Xiao Ling. The two of them were busy commanding the situation and letting the citizens enter the underground city. Seeing that Ji Tianxing had returned, Xiao Han hurriedly came up and asked, "Tianxing, did you find anything?" Ji Tianxing shook his head and said calmly, "Lord Xiao, I have an idea that must be implemented as soon as possible. I need a secret room to sit in and cast the spell. I can't let anyone disturb me." Xiao Han immediately nodded and said, "No problem, I'll send someone to arrange it now." Soon, he found a secret room and rushed over with Ji Tianxing and Xiao Ling. Ji Tianxing entered the secret room. He and Xiao Ling guarded outside the door and waited patiently. In the dark secret room, there was nothing else except for a cold ice jade bed. Ji Tianxing didn't mind. He sat cross-legged on the cold ice jade bed and closed his eyes to start casting the spell. He formed hand seals with both hands, drawing complicated arcs and gestures as he muttered profound and obscure incantations. Swish, 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 swish. His entire body flashed with divine soul white light, bursting with a powerful aura. After a moment, he shouted with a solemn expression, "Great Expansion 3000, Divine Soul Astral Projection." Swish. The divine soul sword that had been silent in his mind suddenly broke through the top of his head and flew into the air. The dark golden small sword quickly grew and became a 3-foot-long golden divine sword that flickered with sacred golden light. Since I cultivated the divine soul astral projection secret technique, this is the first time I'm using it. I hope it won't disappoint me. Ji Tianxing's voice came from the sword of divine spirit. He put his body into the sword world and placed the broken sword on the ice jade bed. Then, his divine soul sword flew out of the secret room and into the sky above the city lord's mansion. Xiao Han and Xiao Linga, who were guarding outside the secret room, instantly stared, their eyes wide open, and revealed bewildered expressions when they saw a golden light flash and a golden divine sword charge into the sky. The two of them looked up at the sky and discussed in low voices. "Uncle Xiao Han, did a divine sword fly up just now?" "That's right, it's a golden divine sword. It should be Tianqing casting a spell. What does Big Brother Tianqing want to do? There are no demons or blood gods in the city. Who is he going to kill? I'm not sure either. Let's just wait and see, and guard the secret room well." Just as the two of them were discussing, Ji Tianqing's golden sword soul had already whistled through the sky and flew out of Xuanfeng City. Swish! The 1-meter-long golden sword soul was like a golden stream of light, flying towards the northwest as fast as lightning. He flew 100 miles away and stopped in the sky for a moment. He released his divine soul power to cover a radius of 50 miles and carefully searched. Whether it was the gray sky, the ground covered with fine sand and bones, or the dark depths of the underground, he didn't let go of any of them. After 10 breaths, he searched a radius of 50 miles but didn't find anything. Therefore, his golden sword soul flew around Xuanfeng City and searched the surroundings of the city along the way. After about 15 minutes, Ji Tianqing thoroughly searched the area within 50 miles of Xuanfeng City. This wasn't just a 3-meter underground search, but a 1,000-meter underground search. Even a mosquito or a strand of hair couldn't escape his divine soul's detection. But even so, he still didn't find the aura of the demons, let alone any blood gods. His sword soul stopped in the air and pondered with a heart full of doubts. "How can this be? I've searched a radius of 50 miles, but I didn't find anything. Could it be that the demon powerhouse can absorb blood chi from a few hundred miles away? That's impossible. Only a powerful formation can have such an effect." He was unwilling to give up and continued to fly towards the northwest. He wanted to see where the dark red blood chi that covered the sky was going to fly to. After 15 minutes, Ji Tianqing was 600 miles away from Xuanfeng City and entered a mountain range. He discovered that the dark red blood chi in the sky above this mountain range had become denser. Not only did the dark red blood mist that covered the sky come from Zunfeng City, but there were also a few blood mists that gathered from different directions. Obviously, the source of the blood chi must be from other cities and villages. This mountain range should be the intersection of the blood chi in the sky. It's very likely that the demons are hiding here. Ji Tianqing's spirit was shaken. He immediately flew into the mountain range and released his divine soul power to search carefully. His divine soul power covered a radius of 50 miles. Whether it was the sky or underground, he didn't even miss a rock or a blade of grass in the mountain range. He searched everything. It didn't take long for him to search the area within a radius of 200 miles. Finally, he found a clue in the depths of a 10,000 feet tall mountain. In the depths of the underground rock layer, there was a man-made cave that was only 100 feet in radius. Outside the cave, there was a heavenly origin grade grand formation that could conceal auras. Martial artists below the soul refinement realm would find it difficult to discover. And inside the cave, there was actually a small altar that was 10 meters tall. The altar was in the form of a pyramid that was commonly used by the demon race. It was built with the skulls of human martial artists and augmented with several heavenly origin grand formations. It had an evil demonic effect. Ji Tianqing observed for a moment and discovered that the demonic chi on this altar had not dissipated. There was still a strong demonic power fluctuation remaining. It was just that there should be a demonic magic treasure at the top of the altar as the core of the altar. However, the top of the altar was completely empty. Ji Tianqing immediately concluded that the demon powerhouse must have left not long ago and took away the core magic treasure at the top of the altar. Damn demon bastards! They must have sensed me coming and hurriedly fled. My speed was already fast enough, but I couldn't catch them. No wonder Xiao Han couldn't find them. But those demon bastards definitely didn't go far. I should be able to catch up. When this thought flashed through his divine soul, his golden sword soul immediately left the cave and flew towards the northwest as fast as lightning. The sword soul's speed was extremely fast. It was like an aurora cutting through the sky. Even a 7th level soul refinement realm expert would find it hard to match. Whoosh! After a short while, the golden sword soul had flown 500 miles and arrived above a sparkling lake. At the same time, Ji Tianxing saw that above the lake, there was a thick black fog that was flying as fast as lightning. He used his divine soul power to investigate and immediately discovered that there were 3 heavenly origin realm demon kings hiding in the fog. Chapter 1233. Ji Tianxing's spirit shook when he finally found the traces of the demon clan's experts. His killing intent skyrocketed. Just like what the imperial tutor had told him, the powerful demons who escorted the blood god to spread the disaster were all elite demon king. The 3 demon kings were all above the 6th level of the Sky Origin stage. They also had top Sky Origin stage demon Dao artifacts. Ji Tianxing's golden sword soul immediately descended from the sky. It turned into a 30-meter-long golden sword and slashed at the dark demon fog. Bastards of the demon race, die! His angry roar filled with murderous intent came from the giant sword. At that moment, the sacred golden light lit up the sky. The sharp sword chi tore the world apart. In the dark demon fog, the 3 elite demon kings also saw the giant sword descending from the sky. They immediately became anxious. They desperately urged the demon fog to fly faster, trying to avoid the attack of the giant sword. However, they didn't expect the giant sword to be so powerful. Bang! With a deafening muffled sound, the huge golden sword shattered the pitch-black demonic fog. The demon fog that the 3 elite demon kings used to rest and travel collapsed on the spot. It turned into rolling black smoke and spread out. The terrifying impact sent the 3 demon kings flying. They fell from the sky in a sorry state and smashed into the lake below. 2 of the demon kings reacted first. They immediately rushed out of the water and ran away with wounds all over their bodies. The giant sword chased after them. It exploded with an unstoppable force. With a dazzling golden light, it hit one of the demon kings. Bang! With a muffled sound, the tall and burly elite demon king in black armor was killed by the giant sword. His 30-feet-tall body was shattered into pieces of flesh and blood that filled the air, sprinkling all over the lake. The other elite demon king didn't run far. The giant sword caught up with him and smashed him into pieces. Black demon blood and pieces of flesh mixed together and splashed in all directions. In the blink of an eye, 2 of the 3 elite demon kings were killed. The last demon king was hiding at the bottom of the lake, not daring to show his face. This person was quite smart. He hurriedly burrowed into the ground and used the earth escape technique to escape underground. But it was futile. The golden sword suddenly shrunk to 3 feet long and chased into the ground in the blink of an eye. Swish swish. 2 dazzling golden lights flashed, and the golden sword soul cut off the demon king's legs like cutting vegetables. The demon king, who had lost his arms and legs, was like a human stick. Purple demon blood flowed out of his body as he let out heart-wrenching cries of pain. Ji Tianxing did not kill him. He struck his head with his sword and knocked him unconscious. Then, the golden sword soul emitted a golden light and enveloped the unconscious demon king. It then turned around and flew back to Xuanfeng City. About 15 minutes later, the golden sword soul flew back to Xuanfeng City and entered the secret chamber. Xiao Han and Xiao Linge were still guarding outside the secret room. The 2 of them were waiting in confusion when they suddenly saw the golden sword light flying back. They immediately revealed a surprised and puzzled expression. "Hey, young Master Ji's golden sword is flying back again." Xiao Linge pointed to the sky and said excitedly. Xiao Han frowned and muttered doubtfully, "I saw a figure wrapped in the sword light. It doesn't seem to be a human." "Ah! The sword light can fly back with a person?" Xiao Linge was stunned for a moment and said doubtfully, "If it's not a human, could it be a demon king?" Just as the 2 of them were puzzled, the door to the secret chamber opened. Ji Tianxing, who was dressed in a white robe, walked to the door and said with a calm expression, "Lord Xiao, come in and take a look. I've gained something." Xiao Han and Xiao Linge hurriedly followed him into the secret chamber and saw a demon king lying on the ground. This 3-meter-tall, burly demon was wearing black armor. His skin was dark purple and covered with thick, long hair. However, this person's arms and legs were chopped off, and he was unconscious. It was Xiao Linge's first time seeing a demon king. She curiously sized up the Demon King, but her eyes were filled with hatred and disgust. Xiao Han revealed a surprised expression and hurriedly asked Ji Tianxing, "Tianxing, what did you do just now? How did you catch a Demon King so quickly?" Ji Tianxing explained what had happened to him. Xiao Han immediately frowned and said with a complicated tone, "Looks like our guess was right. The Demon King created a highly toxic plague to devour the power of flesh and soul. However, what kind of formation did they set up to actually devour blood qi from 1,000 miles away? Also, Tianxing, your strength is so high. How could they discover you in advance?" Ji Tianxing said with a solemn tone, "This is also what I want to know, so I captured one alive. Lord Xiao, I'll leave the matter of extorting a confession to you. Take this Demon King elsewhere to extort a confession. There's no need to be merciful to the Demon King. You can use any means necessary as long as you can get some clues." Xiao Han hurriedly nodded and agreed, revealing an excited and expectant expression. He hated the Demon King to the bone. Now that he could personally torture and interrogate a Demon King, he was naturally eager to give it a try. "Oh right, Tianxing, aren't you going to extort a confession with me and wait for the results?" Ji Tianxing shook his head and explained, "I still have to continue casting spells to search the surroundings of Zunfeng City and see if I can find more demons." "That's good too." Xiao Han nodded in agreement and hurriedly carried the unconscious Demon King out of the secret chamber. After he and Xiao Linga left, Ji Tianxing used the primordial spirit astral projection mystic technique to let the golden sword soul fly out of his body. He kept his physical body into the sword world, and the golden sword soul flew out of the secret chamber and left Zunfeng City as fast as a stream of light. In the next few hours, his sword soul flew in the sky, searching for the aura of the Demon King and the whereabouts of the blood god's son. In a full 6 hours, his sword soul searched the area within a radius of 10,000 miles. He saw that within 10,000 miles of Zunfeng City, hundreds of fishing villages and dozens of small towns had turned into dead wastelands. Countless people were corroded into white bones by the poisonous plague, and not even chickens or dogs were left in the villages. However, other than that, he did not find a single Demon King, nor did he find any trace of the blood god's son. When night fell, Ji Tianxing flew back to Zunfeng City somewhat disappointedly. His soul had returned to its original position. This was the first time he used the primordial spirit astral projection mystic technique. His sword soul flew for a few hours, and his soul power was greatly depleted. Therefore, he meditated in the secret chamber to adjust his breathing and recover his soul power. Unknowingly, a night had passed. By the morning of the second day, his soul power had recovered by more than half, and he ended his cultivation. As soon as he walked out of the secret chamber, he saw Xiao Han pacing outside the secret chamber, waiting anxiously. Seeing him come out, Xiao Han squeezed out a smile on his face and said excitedly, "Tianxing, you're finally out. I have 2 good news for you." Chapter 1234. Xiao Han was in a good mood and was a little excited. After all, ever since the outbreak of the poisonous plague, he had been helpless and at a loss on what to do about it. Now, with Ji Tianxing's help, there was finally progress, so of course he was happy. He couldn't wait to pull Ji Tianxing into the study and said, "Tianxing, I interrogated that Demon King all night last night and finally got the result." Ji Tianxing nodded and said expectantly, "What's the result? Tell me." Xiao Han said in a low voice, "The blood god's son does exist and is wreaking havoc in the coastal cities. According to that Demon King, the blood god's son they were escorting is called Yin Qi. 3 months ago, a total of 9 elite Demon Kings protected Yin Qi, crossed the border defense line and sneaked into the East Sea. The mission of those 9 Demon Kings was to help Yin Qi create disasters and poison our human race's people. The flesh, blood, and spirit of the dead commoners despise them greatly, so they carry a type of demonic Dao artifact to collect blood and qi. Speaking of this, Xiao Han took out a dark purple gourd and handed it to Ji Tianxing. They used this magic weapon to place it in the altar formation to collect the blood between heaven and earth and use it to feed the blood god's son. Ji Tianxing took the dark purple gourd and looked at it carefully, then frowned and said, "Isn't this the purple yin magic gourd?" Xiao Han raised his eyebrows and asked, "Tianxing, you recognize this gourd?" Of course I recognize it. Ji Tianxing nodded and said with a cold face, back in the Central State, the demon race disguised as humans and infiltrated the cities of the Central State, wantonly spreading the Demon King's demon Gu. They used this purple yin magic gourd to collect flesh and souls and store the demon Gu and poisonous insects. When I investigated the demon Gu chaos, I saw it several times and even seized a few. I see. Xiao Han nodded and suddenly understood. Ji Tianxing asked again, Lord Xiao, did you find any other clues? What about the other 6 elite demon kings and the blood god's son? Are they working together? Where are they hiding now? Xiao Han revealed a regretful expression as he shook his head and said, I've forced him to answer this question many times and tortured him for most of the night. Unfortunately, he still refused to say a word. I could see that he had a soul-deep respect and loyalty for the blood god. I didn't know why. After that, he was tortured to the point that it was unbearable to look at. Unable to bear it any longer, he swallowed poison and killed himself when I wasn't paying attention. Ji Tianxing frowned and looked at him suspiciously. He asked, Lord Xiao, you are a soul-refining realm expert. A mere demon king actually committed suicide in front of you? Logically speaking, if a Sky Origin stage demon king were to fall into the hands of an expert like Xiao Han, he would definitely beg for death. Xiao Han immediately felt a little embarrassed. He smiled embarrassedly and explained, Tianxing, you don't know. Those demon kings are the elite death warriors of the demon race. Even if I sealed his power and made him unable to move, there is still poison in his body. As a last resort, he made the poison in his body explode with a thought and died on the spot. After Ji Tianxing heard this, he could only sigh helplessly and nodded. The demon race is cunning and cruel. They are vicious to the people of various races and are even more vicious to themselves. Forget it, that demon king is dead. It's a pity that we only got this little clue. It's not very useful. Hearing him say this, Xiao Han's agitated emotions immediately calmed down. He frowned slightly. After weighing the pros and cons for a moment, he said, Tianxing, apart from this matter, there's also good news. All the people of Xuanfeng City have successfully moved into the underground castle. I've also set up a defensive formation for the underground castle. Judging from the current situation, the people of Xuanfeng City will be safe for at least a month. After a month, the poisonous plague that enveloped Xuanfeng City will have long dissipated. What do you plan to do next? Ji Tianxing said without hesitation, the problem of Xuanfeng City has been temporarily solved. The remaining matters will be left to City Lord Xuanfeng. There are also a few other cities that are suffering from a disaster. We need to hurry over and help them. Furthermore, we need to find the blood god and the 6 demon kings as soon as possible. As long as we eliminate them, the disaster of the Eastern Sea will be easily resolved. Xiao Han nodded in agreement without hesitation. All right, then we'll do as you say. I'll immediately arrange the itinerary. After he finished speaking, he turned and left the study to give orders to City Lord Xuanfeng. Ji Tianxing waited in the study for 15 minutes before Xiao Han finished giving instructions. Then, he brought Xiao Ling to look for him. The 3 of them left Xuanfeng City together and flew towards the northwest direction. While they were flying, Xiao Han explained the situation to Ji Tianxing. He said, Tianxing, we're going to Yongyang City next. That city is only 15,000 kilometers away from here. Just yesterday morning, a poisonous black qi that covered the sky appeared in a few small towns outside the city. This morning, I received news that 7 of the 9 towns under Yongyang City's jurisdiction have been invaded by the poisonous plague. The commoners have all died. The poisonous plague is currently spreading to Yongyang City. It seems that the poisonous plague has also appeared in the city. Hearing Xiao Han's words, Ji Tianxing's eyes immediately revealed a cold glint. He said in an icy tone, it seems that the demon kings and the blood god scions are near Yongyang City. The fact that the poisonous plague just broke out means that they are secretly spreading the poison. If we hurry over, we might be able to catch them red-handed. That's right. Xiao Han nodded in agreement. He said with a murderous aura, those damned blood god scions and demon kings are actually so arrogant. They are causing trouble in Yongyang City, which is not far from us. This time, I will definitely not let them escape. I will definitely catch them all in one fell swoop. The three of them were filled with anticipation and killing intent as they flew across the sky at lightning speed, rushing towards Yongyang City. About 8 hours later, the three of them arrived at Yongyang City. When they were still 100 miles away, Ji Tianxing saw that the small city standing on the plains had already activated the Great City Defense Array. In the sky outside the city, there were strands of black qi surging and countless dark red qi of blood dancing in the air. Xiao Han released the white light of his divine spirit to protect Xiao Ling. On the other hand, Ji Tianxing released the power of his divine spirit to secretly investigate the situation in Yongyang City. He saw that Yongyang City was protected by a 5-colored light barrier with a radius of dozens of miles. The 3 city gates were all tightly shut. There were city guards on the city walls. The doors and windows of every household in the city were tightly shut. There were no pedestrians on the streets. There were only squads of soldiers shuttling back and forth in the city. Dense black qi constantly emitted from a few residences in the city and spread throughout the city. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianxing's eyes revealed a cold glint as his killing intent surged. Chapter 1235. Ji Tianxing and the other two didn't waste any time and rushed to the city gate as fast as they could. Then, Xiao Han flashed his identity token and asked the city guards to open the city gate. After the three of them crossed the city gate and entered Yongyang City, they started to act under Ji Tianxing's arrangement. The houses and buildings emitting the toxic black gas were located in 3 different areas of Yongyang City. They were dozens of miles apart from each other. The three of them split up and rushed to each location to search for the houses and buildings. In a short 10 breaths of time, Xiao Han flew over 10 miles with lightning speed and entered a simple and elegant house. He found a middle-aged demon disguised as a middle-aged man in the house's underground secret room. The middle-aged man hid deep underground with 6 purple yin demonic gourds in front of him. He was casting a spell to activate the toxic black gas in the gourds. After Xiao Han arrived, he caught the man red-handed and seized the 6 purple yin demonic gourds. After he beat the middle-aged man half to death, the man revealed his true form. He was actually a middle-aged demon with the strength of Sky Origin Stage 8. Without a doubt, he was one of the 6 elite demon kings. After Xiao Han captured him, he took the 6 demonic gourds filled with toxic black gas and rushed to the city to meet up with Ji Tianxing. At the same time, Xiao Ling rushed to an ancient tower. She found 5 purple yin demonic gourds in the tower's underground secret passage. They were arranged in a special pattern and formed a subtle array. She relied on the soul power shield that Xiao Han gave her and wasn't afraid of the black gas corrosion. She seized the 5 purple yin demonic gourds. At this time, a few muffled sounds came from a manor in the east of the city. A dazzling golden light lit up. It was Ji Tianxing fighting with 2 elite demon kings. When he arrived at the manor, the 2 demon kings disguised as the manor's servants were hiding in the dark and releasing toxic black gas. After Ji Tianxing found them, he killed one of them and captured the other. He seized more than 10 purple yin demonic gourds. After 100 breaths of time, the 3 of them arrived at the city's plaza and gathered. Xiao Han reported to Ji Tianxing, "Tianxing, I caught a demon king and 6 demon gourds." Xiao Ling was also filled with excitement as she said, "Big brother Tianxing, I also found 5 demonic gourds." Ji Tianxing nodded and threw the demon king in his hand to the ground. He said in a low voice, "I also found a dozen purple yin magic gourds. I killed a demon king and captured another. Looks like we came at the right time. Those 3 bastards were releasing a highly toxic plague. Luckily, we stopped them in time." Xiao Han also threw the demon king he had caught onto the ground and said with a grave expression, "Fortunately, the poisonous plague has just broken out. If we had come any later, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Tianxing, how should we deal with these 2 demon kings? Shall I interrogate them?" "No need, I'll do it myself." Ji Tianxing waved his hand and stared at the 2 demon kings expressionlessly. His entire body released an invisible divine soul pressure. The 2 demon kings were beaten half to death. Their bodies were dripping with blood, and they were missing arms and legs. One of the demon kings was a middle-aged man, and the other was a white-haired old man of the demon race. Both of them had their cultivation sealed. They could neither escape nor move. They were like fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. When they were enveloped by Ji Tianqing's divine soul pressure, they felt a stinging pain all over their bodies. Deep fear surged in their hearts, and they couldn't help but lower their heads. Ji Tianqing's right hand flashed with a golden light. He condensed a golden sword with his magic power and pointed it at the middle-aged demon king's chest. He shouted, "From now on, you will answer every question I ask." The middle-aged demon king looked up at him and sneered, "Ha ha ha. Stupid." Although he was speaking in the demon race's language, Ji Tianqing could understand him. He immediately waved the golden sword in his hand and cut off one of his arms. An entire arm covered in blood fell to the ground with a plop. A stream of black blood spurted out from the wound of the severed arm and sprinkled on the ground. The middle-aged demon king's face twitched in pain, and he let out a hoarse scream. Ji Tianqing remained expressionless. He said coldly, "Speak human language. Where is the blood god?" The middle-aged demon king was still furious. His eyes were dark red and flashed with a murderous aura. He glared at Ji Tianqing and sneered, "Boy, even if you kill me, I will never tell you. The blood god will assist the demon king to kill all the races in the world and unify the entire continent. Sooner or later, you lowly human beings will all die." Before he could finish, Ji Tianqing wielded the golden sword in his hand and chopped off both of his legs with a series of swooshing sounds. Suddenly, black demon blood spilled all over the ground and gathered into a small stream flowing on the ground. The middle-aged demon king's body twitched in pain, but he couldn't resist at all. He could only let out a miserable scream. However, after a few screams, black blood flowed out of his eyes. He shouted hoarsely, "Human reptile, even if you kill me, so what? In order to protect the blood god, I will sacrifice myself for the demon king. I will die honorably. Just wait and see. In a few days, all the humans in the East Sea will be dead." Ha 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 ha. The middle-aged demon king laughed wildly. After a few laughs, his voice stopped abruptly, and he died on the spot. Ji Tianqing hurried to check and found that the poison in the demon king's soul had directly poisoned him to death. What a ruthless method, to actually plant poison in the soul. Ji Tianqing frowned and murmured with a gloomy face. The elder of the demon clan sneered, "Ha ha ha. Little b****, how could you understand the pride and honor of our demon clan? For the demon king's great cause of unifying the continent, we can sacrifice anyone. Just kill me. Give me a quick death. Soon, the blood god's son will be able to kill all of you. When that time comes, you lowly human reptiles will die in batches. There will be tens of millions of humans left in the East Sea. Rivers of blood will flow and mountains of corpses will be formed." After a sneer, the old demon king's voice became weaker and weaker. Black blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth, and his eyes gradually closed. Obviously, he had also detonated the poison in his soul and committed suicide on the spot. Damn it! Ji Tianqing was livid with anger, but there was nothing he could do. Xiao Han was also full of anger. He clenched his fists tightly, and his whole body was surging with murderous intent. However, he quickly calmed down and asked Ji Tianqing, "Tianqing, these demon kings are too difficult to deal with. When they sneaked into our territory to carry out the mission, they had already made up their minds to die. It seems that it is too difficult for us to use them as a breakthrough to investigate the blood god's whereabout." "I don't think so." Ji Tianqing shook his head and sneered, "Although these two demon kings did not reveal the blood god's whereabouts, they have inadvertently revealed the key information." Chapter 1236. Tianqing, what do you mean? Xiao Han furrowed his brows and asked Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing explained calmly, "When we arrived just now, the three demon kings were using the purple yin magic gourd to release a poisonous plague. What does this mean? Not only can the blood god release the 3 disasters and 9 disasters, but the demon kings can also use the purple yin magic gourd to store the poisonous plague and spread it everywhere. Just now, the old demon king said that the blood god is about to achieve great success. This makes me suspect that the blood god can also cultivate and become stronger. The opportunity for the blood god to become stronger must be the flesh and soul of the people, which is the blood qi collected by the demon kings. Hearing this, Xiao Han and Xiao Ling nodded in agreement. I see. Tianqing, your analysis is very reasonable. Brother Tianqing, I didn't expect you to be able to analyze so many clues from the words of the two demon kings. Ji Tianqing said with a serious face. Other than that, there is also a very important piece of information that cannot be ignored. Just now, the old demon king said that our people will soon die in batches until the people of the Eastern Sea are all dead. I suspect that the blood god is moving separately from them because he is carrying out a major plan to greatly increase his strength. Once the blood god succeeds in increasing his strength, an even greater disaster will come. Therefore, I can roughly guess the next target of the blood god. Xiao Han immediately became nervous and asked, which city is it? Is it the Black Rock City? Ji Tianqing shook his head and said in a low and serious voice, it's the Tianquan Plain. Ah! Xiao Ling was stunned for a moment. Suddenly, she thought of something and her face turned pale. Xiao Han's face also changed drastically. He said with a sudden realization, I understand. I set up 4 refugee camps on the Tianquan Plain and gathered 5 to 6 million people. Once the blood god spreads the plague in the refugee camps, he will definitely be able to kill millions of people and obtain a terrifying amount of flesh and blood qi. His strength will definitely increase exponentially. No, we have to rush to the Tianquan Plain immediately. We can't let the blood god scheme succeed. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said with a grave expression, Lord Xiao, there is no need to be anxious. This is just my guess and might not be accurate. Send an order to the Tianquan Plains and have the garrison generals strengthen their defenses. Then, we will rush over. This matter is dangerous, and it is inconvenient for Miss Ling to follow. The two of us will be enough to deal with it. When Xiao Ling heard this, she immediately frowned and said with some grievance, Big brother Tianqing, I'm also a member of the Donglin army now. Protecting the citizens is also my duty. Xiao Han weighed the pros and cons and said, Ling hurry back to the Black Rock City and stay in the Divine General's estate. Wait for my orders. What happened to your neck? Halfway through, his tone suddenly changed, and his voice was filled with worry and anxiety. Ji Tianqing subconsciously turned his head to look at Xiao Ling and saw a faint black aura at the base of her white neck. Previously, her long hair had covered her neck, so the two of them had not noticed this. After seeing her neck clearly, Ji Tianqing and Xiao Han's expressions changed on the spot. This is bad. Ling has been corroded by the highly toxic plague. Xiao Han frowned, and his expression was as gloomy as ice. Ji Tianqing also frowned and asked with a worried tone, Lord Xiao, weren't you using a soul power shield to protect her? When was she corroded by the highly toxic plague? Xiao Han thought for a moment and suddenly understood. I know, Ling must have gone to check the situation in the tower just now and came into contact with the purple yin demonic gourd and the highly toxic plague. Xiao Ling was also a little flustered. She was terrified and her face was pale. However, she did not cry. She forced herself to calm down and quickly comforted the two of them. Uncle Xiao Han, Big brother Tianqing, don't worry. I don't feel any discomfort. Uncle Xiao Han also said before that even if a heavenly origin realm martial artist is corroded by the highly toxic plague, they can still hold on for a month. Speaking up to here, she looked at Ji Tianqing and squeezed out a smile. Her tone was full of hope. Big brother Tianqing, I have already been infected by the highly toxic plague and can only live for a month. Big brother Tianqing, let me go with you to the Tianquan Plains, okay? Before Ji Tianqing could answer, Xiao Han shouted in a dignified tone, Ling don't mess around. This matter concerns your life. How can you be so willful? You are only at the initial stage of being corroded by the highly toxic plague. There is still a chance to save you. I will help you expel the poison. Xiao Ling shook her head and said with a firm tone, Uncle Xiao Han, although you are a soul refinement expert and can resist the highly toxic plague, there might be an accident. You are the East Woods Divine General. If you are injured because of this, wouldn't I be a sinner? Moreover, the blood god is about to attack the Tianquan Plains. Saving the civilians is more important. Don't worry about me. Go save the civilians. Xiao Ling. Xiao Han was anxious and worried. He shouted, "This is an order. You cannot disobey." Xiao Ling immediately lowered her head and didn't dare to refute. Ji Tianxing said with a calm expression, "Lord Xiao, let me handle this matter. It shouldn't take too much time. It will be resolved soon." Xiao Han and Xiao Ling were stunned for a moment. They looked at him in disbelief. "Tianxing, are you really confident? Big brother Tianxing, aren't you afraid of being corroded by the highly toxic poison?" Ji Tianxing didn't explain anything. He walked straight to Xiao Ling and stood a step away from her. Then, he reached out his right hand with a calm expression. He pressed on Xiao Ling neck and gently stroked it. The distance between the two was too close. When their eyes met, they could hear each other's heartbeat and breathing. This distance had already exceeded the range of ordinary friends. Only family, husband and wife, and lovers could do this. Xiao Ling delicate body suddenly stiffened. She was stunned and didn't dare to move. Her eyes gazed at Ji Tianxing affectionately. Her lips moved slightly, but she couldn't say a word. Especially when Ji Tianxing's broad and warm palm gently stroked her neck. She was so shy that her cheeks were flushed red. Her body trembled slightly, and her heart was about to melt. But Ji Tianxing's expression was indifferent. He didn't have any distracting thoughts in his heart. He focused on activating the power of the heaven-mending orb and releasing a dense sacred white light from his palm. The gentle sacred white light wrapped around Xiao Ling's neck and gradually spread to her right shoulder, right arm, and right palm. At this time, Ji Tianxing discovered that not only was there a black aura around her neck, a thin black line had appeared on her shoulder, arm, and the back of her hand. However, the mysterious white light released by the heaven-mending orb quickly swallowed the black aura in her body and eliminated the black line on her arm. After about 100 breaths of time, the highly toxic black aura that invaded Xiao Ling's body was completely purified by the heaven-mending orb. Ji Tianxing slowly withdrew his palm and nodded. "All right, Miss Ling is fine now."